our top 8 for this event. There are some fantastic decks, some fantastic players, and a lot on the line as well. So, with that in mind, what are you most looking forward to see today? I know I asked you at the end of the day, but has it changed?
I got to say the same thing. It's really nice to see kind of two sides of our top 8 today. The 4 of the top 8 lists are all about, what was good in set 1? What did that meta look like? And what do we see kind of leading up to the Pro Tour and the journey to this point? And then the other exact half, 4 of top 8 no less, is the new kid on the block, the new format defining deck, quite possibly Axe Spider. So I'm really curious to see if, with this being the last rounds we will ever play of set 1, can Rex come out on top again and take that top spot, or is Axe Spider going to be the new deck that ushers in a new format? So I'm really curious to see, some great matches today, and also what's going to come out on top at the very end, because they got their Worlds invite. We're playing for $25,000 to first place. That's a good chunk of change.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, $100,000 in total for the prize pool, but first place gets $25,000. And honestly, that's what I'm most excited to see, is who's going to walk away with not just the cash, but the glory as well. Again, this is the first Pro Tour event, so when you win this, you are the Pro Tour winner until somebody else gets it. Here we're going to take a look at the bracket. We've got Rex Mendoza. That was our number 1 seed from yesterday, and they'll be facing off against Marco Kwok. That's actually going to be our first game on the broadcast today. But still, we've got some other great names to cover as well. Admasu Williams, who was on that white aggro list yesterday. We got to see that on the broadcast. They'll be up against Daniel Zeidenberg. Then we have Christian Eichwald taking on Caleb Albert. And then lastly, I know this one is a heartbreaker for you and I, we have the Ryan versus Ryan matchup there at the bottom. So Ryan Matas taking on Ryan Miles. Both of those Ryans as well lost in the first round and then won every game for the rest of the day to secure their spot in this top 8. So we'll see, at some point who is the victorious Ryan there. But I think this is a fantastic bracket.
Yeah, I really love that we get to see a new versus old matchup in quite literally every spot of top 8, right? We have that split that I talked about, the older set 1 kind of heroes and champions of the format versus the new purple white Axe Spider. So as today progresses, we're going to get to see how all these matchups go. And again, we could very quickly see purple white Axe Spider versus purple white Axe Spider, which we did see yesterday in case you missed it. And there was some good games to go back and watch, but really curious to see, again, with this beautiful 50-50 split, to see how this develops over all of top 8 today.
Yeah, in fact, because the bracket shaked out exactly the way that it did, there's a chance that the top 8 could be all Axe Spider, or excuse me, the top 4. The top 4 could be all Axe Spider, or the top 4 could just be all the old decks. I imagine we're going to get some sort of split. I don't think that it's going to go right down the line like that, but I do find it kind of funny that we are literally kind of having that face-off right in the first round of the top 8. And this has been, I think, a really exciting tournament to cover, because not only have we seen a lot of diversity in the field, but we've also had some great matches as well. So yesterday we had, great buzzer beaters. We had some that went to tiebreakers. We had others that I felt like I blinked and I missed it. How do we think it's going to be today? Do you think that players are going to take a bit more time, knowing that so much is on the line, be a bit more methodical, or are we going to see a lot of diversity in terms of like play types and game styles today?
Yeah, I think the big question is going to be, how much sleep did they get last night, right? This is, as you mentioned, a very historical moment. Being the first Pro Tour champion for Battle Spirit Saga is quite the title itself. And then again, everything that we're playing for, there's a lot on the line. So definitely going to see yesterday we had the 7 rounds to battle through, but hopefully players today are well rested and able to, take their time with the match. Yes, we still have to get through the 3 games. We still have some timers to beat, but I'm hoping we get to see some of those really fun, it's going to stick with me, so I have to bring it up again. I love that play yesterday where we got to see the early sacrifice of the elemental into rushing out of depths and then immediately having another one in play. And then also just some of the Axe Spider decks coming online and saying, hey, I have all these amazingly strong 0 drops, which are going to filter through my deck and help me find the key pieces I need to stabilize. So really looking forward to the good mix of games that we have, both from a aggressive side. We do have white aggro, which could just run all the way to the end. And then also the controlling pieces with Axe Spider, seeing who gets their, finishers online first and can help stabilize the game.
Yeah, the elementals were kind of the star of yesterday in many ways, because they showcased how important not just the early body on the board is, but as well the cost reduction portion. And yes, the Axe Spider decks have been taking the most advantage of it, but even in this first round that we're going to be seeing, I know that Marco's purple list is also still running 4 copies of the Amethystis, for example. So it's not just for the Axe Spider lists. I think that these elementals are kind of here to stay, and that we're going to see quite a bit more of them, even when set 2 comes out. I know that yesterday during our exhibition, I was kind of abusing the butterfly to much the same effect.
Yeah, the butterfly is especially strong out of green because it can just attack, right? The elementals in EX01 have that restriction that at level 1 they can't attack, but at level 2, if you put the 3 cores on them, you can then draw a card, where the map butterfly is just a vanilla in that regard. So it's much more straightforward in what it can do. But as we saw, green has a lot of tools to ramp with, and you can get those key spirits online very early.
All right, now we are getting that handshake, which tells me we are ready to begin round 1 of this top 8. Again, this is going to be Rex Mendoza taking on Marco Kwok. Rex, of course, on the Axe Spider list that has been very, very good all throughout this event. Marco on a very strong purple list with a lot of top end. This is the one that we were talking about yesterday that in the deck list is running 4 copies of Black Lance, has the 4 copies of the Infernal Curse King Dragon, and the Dark Bishop Bacillus as well. So
yeah, Marco's deck is definitely one that goes back to all the way in the launch events, right? When we first started this journey in set 1, a lot of the decks focused around the Dark Bishop Bacillus combo with Infernal Curse King Dragon, as it was a very strong at just clearing up the board with 2 cards. And we've seen this time and time again, not only yesterday, right? But as I mentioned, all through set 1 format, and was doing very well in the variety of Grand Opens. So the Axe Spider deck doesn't get hit as hard by it because, of course, Axe Spider's cores can't be removed. But because we're playing all these 0 drops, because we do have some other threats that are not Axe Spider, spoiler, the Curse King combo can still do work in this matchup.
Well, you mentioned the 0 drops, and we have the Amethystis, and we have our friendly little fox there as well. And on the other side, of course, purple just doing what it wants to do here with some of these early threats that also enable a bit of card draw potentially. And we're going to have to see whether or not the Axe Spider can stall until it finds its key pieces, because ultimately that's what these 0 drops are meant to do, right? They want to kind of get in the way, let you filter until you can get your strong Axe Spider to kind of wall up and then go over the top. But right now we're going to see Marco kind of follow that trend, right? We have to get those out of the way. It's that double-edged sword, right? You don't want to just not attack your opponent, but you also don't want to help them filter. So it feels bad when you do it. You know what the end result is, right? He's going to swing both times. Both of these units are likely going to jump in front, but that's what you got to do.
Yeah, the greatest strength right now in Battle Spirits, right, is as you're attacking your opponent, and with the board that Rex has set up on this first turn, you say, okay, I'm either going to take the damage, which is going to ramp me a core to my reserve, or I'm going to block with this elemental and draw a card. Like, I get to choose which one of these 2 happen unless you remove my threat. So Rex definitely gets the opportunity to say which one of these I want to do depending on what his hand looks like.
Yeah, so I was just about to point out, I thought that there was going to be a double filter, but Rex decided to take the second damage, which told me that they wanted that cost reduction. And sure enough, they kept the 0 drop. And again, that's the power of these, right? Because they still give you the cost reduction. That meant that Rocket City was reduced, and then the Axe Spider after the Rocket City got the double reduction. So that was a great kind of parlay into exactly the board state you want to be for this matchup. Rocket City, if they drop the Netherworld Depths on the other side, can slow down that card draw, and then obviously Axe Spider is your giant wall.
Yep, and Snowbit really being the MVP, as it were, for staring down a bunch of scary threats across the board. The army, the undead that Marco is putting together here. But we do see a Mordred come online, which is going to get rid of that 0 cost. And yes, you're going to potentially bounce off the Axe Spider here, but it's a way to kind of lower the number of reductions that they have on the field. So keep in mind, like, as players are trying to build up those board states so they can have the maximum amount of reductions, they just want to make things a little bit easier for them to play. And this is opening up the turn for the Agilveil to get in the chip damage, right? Checking, hey, Rex, do you have, some type of answer you want to play here, or are we just taking the chip damage? But at 3 life, I mean, Rex is still feeling really great in this position with an Axe Spider and Rocket City online.
Yeah, Marco is stuck in a position where realistically what you want to do is you want to get that chip damage in, because at some point when you do get to the top end, you have to have your opponent low enough that you can finish them off. It's so rough because, again, you want to get damage in, but you're also fueling them whenever they take that damage to get those cores up, which means they're going to play more things to kind of wall off. And here, I just have to say, I love that promo. With the snowflakes. It is so beautiful.
Yeah, the Fulla with the snowflake design, going back to the launch events, all those promos came out really, really nice. What's also important here is, the Rex has a choice here with how he's going to play out his soul core, right? So Axe Spider wants the soul core to be on Rocket City so he can protect it, but Fulla also says that, hey, I can protect myself from core removal effects, but I also want to protect another spirit. So now you have the option of, am I valuing this Nexus more, or am I going to value something I play other than Axe Spider, knowing that my opponent is playing the full Cursed Dragon Bishop combo? Because keep in mind, we are in open deck list for top 8. So both players have perfect knowledge of what their opponent is playing. So I really do like the Fulla development here.
What would be something in Rex's list that might potentially want to be protected? So I think that's the interesting thing about this. Obviously, a great inclusion, especially against purple, because you do, as you said, want to protect against the core removal. And it's not even just necessarily, the Bishop into Infernal Curse King Dragon combo, but there are other potential core removal options like core theft as well. So with that in mind, is there a top end threat? Because I remember we got to see Rex yesterday on the broadcast, and he is not one of the people that it was including Elk, for example, which would have been, I think, a prime candidate. So
Yeah, so we are able to pull up his list, and we didn't see it, but it looks like he does actually have the Elk. We saw the Derm Dyna. So here's an interesting part as well. With Derm Dyna, you have to spend the Soul Core. So that's also another way of, hey, that Soul Core, is a very strong effect that players have access to, but in the game you only ever get one. So I think Elk is definitely going to be the premier threat here for his deck, or also Enterprise if you're just trying to protect your board. And yes, they can still pull off the Bishop Cursed Dragon combo, but at least keeping your Enterprise alive so that you can protect from the follow-up removal can be really important.
Yeah, Enterprise was the one that I was kind of considering, but I'm actually very happy to hear that he's running Elk. You're right, we did not get to see it yesterday on the broadcast, but perhaps one of my favorite cards from this kind of first set 1 meta. Again, it comes from the starter deck, so not a true set 1 card, but
it counts.
I do love the Divine Moonsky Beast Fan Attack Elk. It just rolls right off the tongue. It's so easy to say, and I adore that card. Speaking of cards I adore and that fit my requirements of having the 5 words in the name, we have the Grand Underworld Trio Queen Maduke hitting the table. This is one of those top-end cards I think Marco is looking for, and why you want that chip damage early on so that this Blood Curse can suddenly become very threatening.
Yeah, and it's really great. We have the Black Lance on the field as well, which is technically curse at level 1 while attacking. And Black Lance also just being a great card that we got to see yesterday on the broadcast as well, just being able to either go under those Star Blessed draws or just sometimes being a draw engine for purple as well. So I definitely see, the early stages of this game are going to be, again, just building up your board, trying to find those threats that you want. But Marco found a Maduke quite early, all things considered, which is going to be a key piece here because Axe Spider is looking to be a 6K blocker with Rocket City in play. So now that's something he has to play around while Maduke is on the board.
One of the interesting things here as well is that, interesting, we have an Infernal Curse King coming down on the side of Rex. So all of our talk about Marco wanting to hit that combo, and instead Rex is the first one to find the dragon and gets a lot of value out of it because it's played after the Maduke hits. I was about to say one of the interesting things about Maduke coming down as well is that it was kind of putting Marco a bit thin there, but it's punished immediately.
Yep.
I'm shocked that it happened. I was about to say, all right, there's a window of opportunity, and Rex just hit it beautifully.
Yeah, the timing on this was really important, right? Because if we get to go to our next step and fuel up those cores, that Maduke becomes a far scarier threat than it is unless Marco is able to do a proper follow-up. And going back to the full discussion, hey, sometimes you just want a soul core on a Cursed Dragon, and you just let that guy vibe there and be protected by Fulla. So sometimes the soul core is just saying, hey, I have an extra spirit that can attack, and at some point, this might connect. So that's a great protection setup by Rex as well.
Yeah, Rex is doing a great job of keeping things under control. Oh, there it is. So we got to see a peek at Rex's hand, and I saw the Mechlord Derm Dyna floating in there. So that will be a way that you can close out the game. I was just about to say Rex is doing a great job of playing defense, and that's fine and all, but at some point you have to find a way to win the game. Well, turns out he's already sitting on it. Here on the other side, I see a lot of tools, right? There's another world, some burning forces, things like that on the side of Marco, but not a lot to get him out of this potentially sticky situation, especially now that we know that the Derm Dyna is threatening, looming in the hand of Rex.
Yep, and getting that ramp off the Curse Drag on the turn previously, right? It's only 2 cores, but hey, every core counts when you have to have that high-end investment in Derm Dyna, and then you also want to protect him by leaving 3 cores on him. So it's really interesting to note here. Look at the time. We're only 10 minutes into this match. Marco has his Maduke. Rex has his Derm Dyna in hand. And it's not like some of the matches we've seen yesterday where they go 20, 30 minutes before finding some of these key finishers that they're going to want. So we might actually see this game develop into a game 3 if we find these threats early enough in both game 1 and game 2.
You know, I need to give a shout out to Rex because one thing I have noticed, Grand Underworld Trio Queen Maduke hit the board, and it was not picked up in red. Yesterday, we were up to 3 for that count. But so far, Rex has resisted the urge to pick up the card and read it.
He just
this is how you know you're at the top 8 of the Pro Tour, right?
He just didn't want to move all the cores off because there's a lot more to put back on there. But yes, I don't think the Maduke counter is going to be live for today because we are just keeping it on the board for now. We do see a core theft. Looks like we're going to be turning off the Black Lance. But what do you discard from Rex's hand here? He had a lot of good stuff, but I'm not sure if I saw anything that I'm like super sold on discarding immediately.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I don't think you get rid of the Derm Dyna, that's for sure. Perhaps because you've already played your Infernal Curse King. I think he had a Dark Bishop in his hand as well. So you might say, okay, it's going to be a while before that's back online. So maybe that was an option. And now
he did discard the Derm Dyna. That was Elk in his hand.
That is interesting.
So it was the core theft into discarding Derm Dyna, and I missed the other card. I know that we still have the Elk in hand, which keep in mind is a really great blocker against Curse, but also have to consider that Maduke's Blood Curse can still trigger through it.
Yeah, I missed what the other card was that was discarded, but we saw another peek there, and there was another Infernal Curse King, so that might be why you kept the Dark Bishop. I was thinking if you did not have another dragon, that maybe you forego the bishop because it's going to be a while before you find it. But if you just had top decked a second dragon and you have that combo plus an elk, you're probably saying, okay, maybe I won't need the Derm Dyna because I've got this potential blowout play lining up the moment I get more cores. And so, yeah, looking at this now, right, we've got the elk, we've got the Infernal Curse King, there's a Burning Force as well. So a lot of just like really good tools. Another Axe Biter.
That is a very stacked hand, even after the discard, it turns out.
That is a scary lineup. Absolutely.
So Fula going back up here, seeing some nice BP thresholds. Again, Cursed Dragon is still going to be protected as long as he has the Soul Core on him. But at this point, you know, he doesn't want the
yes.
All right, here's your moment. We're seeing the elk come down. So now we're going to see some burn damage happening.
Hey, it's not the elk, sir. Divine Moonsky Beast Fanatec Elk. Put some respect on that name. That is a beautiful card. I just really love the fact that, again, this card allows you to kind of shift the way the game is played, where you're forcing your opponent to do something they don't want to do. Because right now, if you're Marco, all you have is this Queen Maduke. And so if you continue to develop your board, but you're not actually attacking after you do so, if you don't threaten the health of Rex, you're going to slowly take damage over time, and it will add up very quickly.
So looking at the deck list in front of me, just for a curse count for those at home, Marco does not have the Camelot Knights, notably, in the list. Those got subbed out for the Shadow Elemental Amethysts. We do have 2 Agilvale, 3 Dragonaga Assassin, and of course the 4 Black Lances.
Yeah.
So we are, all things considered, in what we see, because again, this is more of the control package than some of the Lord of the Ground purple curse decks that we've seen, but that is a very lean.
The Maduke counter is back, baby.
All right, that's 4 for those at home and missed the stream yesterday. Every time Maduke has hit the board, it is a double check on the exact wording. And again, I've been playing a little bit of purple more recently, and I even sometimes forget that you lose the life to the void. So it actually, we talk about how in Battle Spirits, when you take a damage, you ramp. But in this case, Maduke is going to say, nope, you're just taking a damage, and poof, it's gone. So Maduke count number 4. And of course,
Elk is one of my favorite cards, but after this event, I think Grand Underworld Trio Queen Maduke might have just dethroned it just because of the homework you give your opponent, right? Like, it hits the board and you're like, okay, you're going to read this. I expect a book report due tomorrow.
Yep. And what's always great when you are the Maduke player, right? You can still, you're at 6 cores. It's going to be 11k with Blood Curse. Mm-hmm. You attack with your other curse unit first to make sure they can get the first trigger. And now when you swing with this Maduke, you say, yes, it's an 11k for now, but I might play a magic card out of my hand using one of the cores off to Maduke and level her down to 2 for a 6k attacker, which, depending on how Rex blocks, could still activate the Blood Curse in this scenario. All right, so it looks like we're going to be pausing really quick for a... does this count as Maduke count number 5? Is it works? It is a Maduke.
I don't think it's going to count for our purposes, because the rule was that you had to see somebody like move or ask for the card or pick up the card to read it. So what I will say is, if during this judge ruling the judge reaches over and adjusts the card for them to read it, then it will add to the Maduke count. That's what I'm going to go with as the official ruling on whether this is Maduke number 4 or 5. But we are going to get a quick judge ruling. I'm really excited by what we've seen. Again, this is just game 1 of round 1, and we have an amazing back and forth. We have the Elk setup where you're trying to force your opponent to attack into you. So Marco has obliged, but now on the other side, Marco is now threatening with these curse triggering Blood Curse, and that's another way that you can chip damage through the Axe Biters. And so both of these decks, in my opinion, found a way, when you expect a bunch of Axe Biter in the field, to deal damage kind of through blocking units, right? That's what Axe Biter does for you. It gives you a blocking unit forever, essentially. Yep. And so you have to figure out a way to push damage through beyond that. Blood Curse is one way to do so. Obviously, Elk is another way to do so. It does look like we're jumping back into this game and going to see a block by the Axe Biter.
Yep. So as of right now, Axe Biter is, going to activate his ability. He's just going to sit there as a block, drawing off the depths. So that's also really important not to miss, because Marco is going to be wanting to dig for those various answers. And it looks, we have a grip of spells, right, in Marco's hand. So we have a number of ways that we can drop Maduke down in power.
Nice. So the Burning Force is what is going to be used to drop her down to level 2.
And Rex very quickly responds in the same order. Just, again, cannot afford for that Blood Curse to trigger, but now he is able to clean up something. So again, with Marco, it is up to, and there wasn't any targets, but it's still a way to get the magic card out of your hand, and the cores off Maduke.
And you are correct. That is a grip full of spells. We still have the core drain there.
Oh, how many? 2. Oh, no, it looks like he's just there is a very small window here with the... Oh. Okay.
So we are going to just take the core theft on the Infernal King Cursed Dragon that was on the side of Rex. Finally get that out of the way. And overall, I think that was an okay turn for Marco. We have the Axe Biter gone as well, so... That's actually a fantastic turn for Marco.
And at this point for Rex's board, right, we were talking about how that Cursed Dragon was protected for so long with that Soul Core, but now you've shifted the priority to the Elk, and you want to now deal with, like, hey, how do I stay above from the Blood Curse versus how is this Elk making sure that it's still getting in when it needs to for the triggered effect? So we're going to be seeing quite a bit of back and forth. And again, we are just 20 minutes in. But what I really like about this matchup now is, again, both players found their kind of key spirits early on, right? They were able to find what the exact threats they wanted to kind of progress the board state in their favor. And now we're seeing like a true back and forth with both summoners having an action to victory online.
Well, the other interesting bit is that we are officially just on a 5-turn clock, one way or the other. Because with Rex down to 1 health, if he takes 1 more damage, he's just outright dead. But every turn he doesn't take damage, that elk is going to deal damage to Marco.
Yep.
So one way or the other, this game is going to end in the next 5 turns. When I say 5 turns, of course, I mean the back and forth, not a single player turn. But we have officially hit a game state where things might progress. And of course, I say that, and now I'm seeing some cores moved around. So perhaps the elk won't be at that threatening threshold. This is a lot of stuff getting ready to be spent. Are we going to see another Curse Dragon, perhaps, just to clean up the Madhu? We are.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely think you have to respect it at that point, just with what's available on your side of the field.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the downside here is that in order to do this, I was going to say, I think you have to give up your elk as well. So on the one hand, you are surviving. I think that's the important part, right? You can't really afford to leave the blood curse out when you're at 1. But on the other hand, you had to give up a lot. You're down your axe biter. You are down your elk. You've kind of like reset the game to an early game state, and you're at 1 health.
Yeah, it's a very tough position to be in. And, you know, on top of all that, we have a depths available for us. So every block, or every spirit has to be blocked. So we're drawing even more cards. And we do know that there are ways to get multiple attacks out of Marco's deck if we really need to. So these, there's no axe biter that wants to stop us. So if we wanted to, we could also put the cores on depths and just threaten to remove the other spirits from the board, kind of fully resetting where Rex is currently at.
You know, I'm thinking back to, a handful of turns ago where we were staring at a board that looked very impressive for Rex with a very impressive hand as well. You and I were under the assumption that Derm Dino was going to come down and start the clock for Marco, but after that Core Theft discarded it, things kind of began to go astray. And so I wonder if this is going to be a point where, at some point Rex will watch this back and wonder if that was the correct call. I still liked the path that they took.
Yep.
I'm not saying that's a mistake, but it was definitely not cut and dry. And given how crazy off the rails this game seemed to go after that, it is one of those things where I think you'll go back and kind of like just re-examine the decision tree.
Yeah, and Marco on that very last turn quickly identifying like, look, our opponent only has 2 cards in hand. They lost their Rex. I'm just going to check them. I just need 3 spirits. They can attack as soon as they enter the field. Whatever I need to put down is just going to go sideways. And when they're at 1 life, I mean, that's the value that we talked about very early on in this matchup. You want to hit that chip damage early so you can force these exact scenarios that just played out. Madhu commanding a very strong series of answers that ultimately, left Rex kind of on the back foot and didn't have an answer to follow up with. So looking at some of the sideboards, we have Marco again with that 3rd Maduk, which I definitely expect that we're going to see. And I still got to give a shout out to Dinosaur Harrier Turbo Rex just in there. I'm not sure if it's going to make the cut in this list for today, but I really love it. It's a card that we've seen come in and out of the set 1 meta just as a way to break up your board state. It is insanely strong, very strong against the yellow decks, as it were. But, getting to bounce the X-Biter might be nice in this scenario and force them to attack when they want to play all defense. So something to consider. But I think for at least Rex's side, we're looking at just more of the purple-white goodness. And what I really like about the X-Biter deck, it's your sideboard is just, I'm going to take some good purple cards. I'm going to take some good white cards, throw them in there and, have what I need. So both players, again, do have the opportunity to look at their opponent's deck list and sideboard, so they also get to figure out, hey, what is my opponent maybe considering? But for between these 2 lists, what are your line of thoughts for what their players are bringing in?
Well, as I look at Rex's sideboard, I see there is another copy of Burning Force. Obviously, I think keeping Netherworld Depths off the table is a bit of a boon. There's also another Rocket City that you can bring in, so if you want to dedicate cores to it, you can turn that extra card draw into simply filter, where you're not gaining that kind of net advantage, because we did see a point in this game where Marco just had a grip full of cards, right? You could argue that part of the reason Rex struggled here is that he was running out of hand resources. As you properly noted, there was just 2 cards in his hand there at the end. Part of the reason is that core theft where he had to discard, but the other part is simply Netherworld Depths kept Marco's hand topped off a lot, right? So Burning Force, Rocket City, those jump out to me. And then the rest is, I think, just kind of depending on what your game plan is, right? There's 2 more Mechlord Durham Dynas in the sideboard for Rex. I would like to see maybe those come in because you know that the purple player is going to put an emphasis on Nexuses, but on the other side, we saw Rex discard one, so he must not value it super highly. I don't think the Buffalong Bills will help. Beldregor, I don't necessarily think is a requirement here either. I think really just kind of like that Nexus hand control is what stands out to me.
The one thing I will know, at least in the case of Buffalong Bill, if Rex feels like his axe biters aren't doing enough, depending on how Marco lines this up, Buffalong Bill can bounce any spirit 5 or less. So everything except black lands can be bounced by Buffalong Bill, shutting off the Blood Curse avenue for Marco. So that is a consideration for how much bounce effects do we want to have. Or, again, we look at these lists and we realize that for Marco, he has 4 Cursed Dragons and 4 Bishops, so really wanting to play the long game. There's a chance where these Durham Dynas can just close out the game very, very fast before Marco has the ability to line up some plays too.
I mean, I really like that card. Like I said, I would have valued it a bit higher. I just, again, can't help but notice that Rex discarded one in that game 1, so he just might have a different analysis or assessment, right? That's one of the great things about this game is there's a lot of different lines of play and people can take what's comfortable to them. When I look at Marco's sideboard, the thing that stands out to me is there is yet another copy of Grand Underworld Trio Queen Maduke. And given how effective that was game 1, I would be leaning on, you know what, I'm going to jam another one in at a minimum. Now, there are some other options potentially, maybe suppression if you're afraid of an aggressive opener. There is another Burning Force if you're afraid that, more Rocket Cities or things like that are going to come in, or you just want to shore up against an opposing Netherworld Depths. But for the most part, I don't think Marco's going to make a ton of changes here.
All right, well, diving into our games, we're going to see a start with the Dragonaga Assassin. A great early start for Marco for just getting the extra card draw. But of course, we did see a Elemental in Rex's hand, which could just come down as a blocker and trade that kind of card draw for card draw in this case. But, Marco's still having the slight advantage there with having the Dragonaga Assassin staying on board and threatening a card draw every turn that it stays on the board.
And then we see an answer with one of those cute little Amethystus. So again, these 0-drop spirits, they've been showing up a lot during yesterday and today's broadcasts, and for good reason. They are a nice little speed bump that also allows you to draw a card. I think a key tell here will be if Rex doesn't block, then obviously the cost reduction is something that they would be looking for. And the way they're pausing instead of just like immediately slamming that as a block tells me that they might be sitting on something like a Depths in hand.
Ooh, just taking the life. Okay.
Yeah.
We did see, I think it was a Cursed Dragon looking at Rex's hand just briefly. But there might be some other top ends where you just really, again, to your point, value that purple reduction on the board. And again, you can always just, taking a life is ramping a core, right, for example. So it doesn't hurt to keep it on that ramp core off the life as well as a reduction on the board. So I think Axe Biter.
I was just about to say, or you could play the Axe Biter here and then just attack, right?
Yep. Another, again, as we're navigating this more control matchup, we know that Marco's going to be a little bit slow. Did he have, the Dream Bomb, I think, was still in hand, has 2 cores left up. Oh, because he would have had to sacrifice his, he has exactly enough cores to play the Axe Biter and put it at 3 cores, so he would have to give up the 0-drop, which in this case, you're probably just going to go for the card draw, because I think we want to see a little bit more development from Rex's hand, because the Axe Biter is great. Again, it will be a blocker for you, but if Marco gets a stronger start here when we follow up with the Depths, it is going to just be a one-sided tie that's going to take over.
So Marco on their turn attacked again. Rex, once again, choosing not to sacrifice that spirit. It is the only one at the moment, so I do understand wanting to be a bit more careful, work on that cost reduction. Now you do get the Axe Biter to come down. You've got the 3 cores, so it's going to be protected, but you've already taken some chip damage. The same game plan that worked for Marco in game 1 is off to a great start here in game 2, getting Rex already down to 3. I will note that we have the burst that was played on the side of Rex, so you do have a bit of a get out of jail free card, because that is something we did not see a lot of in game one. There were not bursts played really on either side.
Right. It was just a good old battle of spirits back and forth until, the Blood Curse did its work. The early aggression plus the Blood Curse did its work, and then following up with those 3 spirits to get that last point of damage in. And it's really interesting, that we missed the turn from Rex. You're not getting your reductions online either. It looked like he had something else he might have played. But now the Axe player is saying, hey, I am going to be a 5k blocker. The Dragonaga Assassin, you don't want to just throw under the bus. But I like this play because the Elemental can still attack, force a block, and draw you a card. So Agilveil and Elemental here both threatening to draw a card and then clearing the way for the Assassin to get in another chip damage.
Yeah, I think this is honestly just going to be a bit of a burst check, right? I think Marco is trying to say, all right, what is it that you have over there, and are you going to use it? If not, take another chip damage. And at some point, it stops being chip damage, and it just is straight up a lot of damage, because if you fall down to 2, that is the beginning of the danger zone, right? You don't want to be in a position where you go all the way down to 1, because that makes all of your future absolute ice shields a bit less effective.
Yeah, and the thing we know from Rex's list as well is he does have 3 Dream Bombs. So there is a line where Rex tried to catch Marco with an attack after deploying a Depths, and then says, you know what, I got you, bounce your Depths, bounce your Dragonaga Assassin, and that's quite a bit of a tempo reset for Marco's side. So I like this early chip damage, because if he gets down to 2, well, then he just has to discard the burst so he can send an Absolute Ice Shield instead. But I think it is, we know from the Caster Vision Pro that it is the Absolute Ice Shield that went down early.
Well, Rex did decide to take another damage there, which denied the draw from Marco if he would have blocked the Amethystus, and instead I think is looking to block the Assassin now. But that still does result in Rex going all the way down to 2. So a blazing start from a deck that is, if I'm being honest, one that I expected to be a bit slower out of the gate. Again, when you are running, 4 copies of Dark Bishop, 4 copies of the Infernal King Curse Dragon, multiple copies of Trio Queen Maduke, like this,
and 4 Black Lance, that still costs 6.
Right, 4 Black Lance as well. Not only does it cost 6, but to really get that benefit, you need the surplus as well. So this is not what I was expecting from this deck, but props to Marco for understanding the assignment. You knew that this is an Axe Biter list where it is going to try to stall you, so make use of your early game threats and get the most value out of them.
I think he was stacking up for 7 there, if it looked like. I don't know if this is a Enterprise coming online or Elephant. Yep.
Yes.
Elephant coming down, which is also now going to give Rex the option, right? That's some nice curse targets you have there, but if this Elephant dies, it's going to ramp us 3 and give us 3 cores, which would be really helpful from where Rex wants to set up. Man, Marco just has a grip, right? That's the thing we talk about with purple. You have all these cards that kind of want to filter themselves, so he is still working with quite a hand here, and it looks like 8 Depths is going to come online to just, you know what, I want even more cards. I'm a purple player. Why not just have infinite cards in hand, it feels like at times?
Well, the other thing is, with that Elephant coming down, the thing about Fortress Namengard is that it is also potentially an offensive card. If you throw some extra cores on it and you start doing the refresh tricks, you can kind of change your tempo and your pace. Wow, that's going to be your favorite play. Granted, later, but your favorite play, using the cost reduction of the 0 to put another world into play, but now that's 2. What I was about to say is that I think Marco is trying to say, all right, if you're going to shift tempo and become aggressive, I want you to understand you're going to give me even more. So even though at some point Marco knows Rex is going to attack him, I think he's using this as a bit of a mental, hey, don't attack me, right? Let me get some time, because right now I think the tempo of the game is kind of shifting in Rex's favor in terms of board state with the spirits. So Marco's just trying to maximize that value in the interim or buy himself some time.
Yep, and we do see the Rocket City in hand from Rex, which had a great showcase yesterday in the purple-white Axe-Biter mirrors that, it is important that it only works during your opponent's turn for the effect. So it only halfway shuts off Depths in that regard. So we might see a Rocket City come down at some point to just help try to bleed some of the options available. But nope, just a Burning Force to clean up one of the Depths and kind of take Rex's turn just to, set that up. But we do have 4 cores on Elephant, as you mentioned. So he's going to enter his attack step, go to the end of his attack step, which will trigger the Elephant, refreshing all his cores. And now he has a full grip again to say, hey, I have all these cores to cast some magic with if I need to.
But you notice there was no attack.
Right. It
So,
just has to
again,
go through the attack step.
Right. No, but I just mean I think that is, again, why Marco is trying to slam those depths. And the beauty of slamming, too, is that the Burning Force still meant there was another depth there to be a problem. But I do feel like Marco is just trying to, kind of shift to playing the long game here, saying, okay, I got in all that chip damage I needed. Now I'm just going to make sure that I have whatever resources I need when the time comes, right? If I slam down these depths, I'm either going to buy myself time or I'm going to get cards. And if I get cards, that also likely means I'm ramping my cores, right? Because you'll be taking that damage, which then means maybe I pull off my combo. So overall, I just really think Marco is well positioned right now for stalling things. Yeah, and we're going to get another spirit here as well. And man, this is so tough, right? Like, I like what Rex has done to stabilize, and I also really like the position that Marco has put themselves in. I know that the life total is 2-5, but this is actually a very close game right now.
Yeah, I really like the kind of check here that, Marco needs to develop his board. He wants to get multiple of those curse threats live because we did see in his hand that he has a Maduke. So we now have the 4 reduction on the board where a Maduke could come down as early as next turn, but he did leave his spirits.
That's a lot of cores. Yeah,
Yep.
you caught somebody with 1 core on each. What a beautiful time for the Infernal Curse King Dragon. So not only do you wipe the board of Marco, but you also get that additional core ramp yourself. And then with the 4 cores on the Elephant, all of those cores are going to refresh. So you're going to have, again, cores available for magic if you need a Dream Bomb or something. But right now, the side of Marco is just wide open. I was just about to say, I really like what Marco was doing, but I think they are about to take some damage. Unless, I guess, perhaps Rex is afraid of giving too many cards with the depths, but this is an opportune time to get that damage in.
Yeah, it's, you killed 3 things, lowered my reductions, but you're going to draw me 3 cards and potentially ramp me, 3 cards and 3 life to cores from life to your reserve, which is going to be really important, helping develop all those spirits that you're just drawing off this. So yes, you are going to refresh your spirits. You are going to refresh your cores from Rex side, but you do need to get that chip damage in eventually. I think this is a really good turn for it, where Rex does have the opportunity then to make closing out with the Derm Dyna or Elk a lot easier. But again, Elephant's nothing to sneeze at either. This is still a very threatening board from Rex's side.
Now, if you are just joining us, this is round 1 of the top 8 of the Battle Spirit Saga Pro Tour here in New Jersey. Marco Kwok has taken game 1, but this is a best of 3. And Rex was struggling in the beginning of game 2. Marco had a lot of chip damage, gained some tempo, but things have hit the moment in time where there's a lot of swings back and forth. And I think right now, Rex is looking for more ways to kind of capitalize on that big shift. It was such an impactful Curse Dragon, again, because not only did it wipe the board, but it also ramped all those cores. And so Rex has essentially enough to pay for whatever he wants. I think right now is one of those times where you want that Derm Dyna to show up.
Yeah, the Curse Dragon giving us a few extra. We have that Elephant that could, threaten to die at any time to give us 3 more cores and draw. Like, Rex has found that exact window that he wanted for the Curse Dragon, because we know, at home with the caster vision, for those that are watching, like, Marco was going to follow up very quickly with a Maduke, which would have swung the tempo in another direction here to make sure that Blood Curse was alive.
Hello.
And sometimes just talking about core removal, we have Mordred coming online with his on attack being able to remove that core from Beldegor. What's really important here, Beldegor can be great as a multi-attacker from the trash, so I thought that was just 2 life left. Now we are down to 2 on Marco's side.
Yeah. It's interesting because that was a sideboard card that was available to Rex, and I was not expecting Dark Knight Mordred to make it in, but it's working out beautifully for Rex, so kudos to them. I believe they had 2 in their sideboard.
Yep, and we do have the Dream Bomb, so we do have a little bit of a Maduke insurance, at least for a turn, that we can bounce it during combat for the Blood Curse. But it looks like we're just going to take a block here off of the Beldegor to hopefully draw us another card off of the Curse Dragon if he wants to try to connect and say, hey, do you have an Ice Shield over there?
This would be a great time for a Dream Bomb on that elephant, perhaps, to stop the refresh.
Yeah, this is one of the key plays and sequencings that we were talking about yesterday on the stream, and we might actually get to see it here. If you bounce this elephant, you kind of caught Rex. He won't be able to. Yes, it's exactly what's going to happen.
Yes,
finally happen on one of these matches. So now you are shutting off Rex's stabilization. That for this turn, he's going to be tapped out. Nothing on his side is going to refresh.
And
just a core
theft here as well. So preserving perhaps the Ice Shield that is hanging out, and this does open up Marco to play some spirits and maybe counterattack. Again, we know Rex is likely sitting on that Ice Shield that's been down there for forever, but at least it would give you an opportunity to perhaps force them to use it.
Man, this is really two big turns kind of back to back here on both sides. Marco very well piloted himself into a just wide open window and get to draw some more cards. But this is really the strength of depths, right? Just helping you filter through your deck, was able to find that core theft, and you got to discard a card you didn't hurt too much.
Right? So we got the, I believe that's an assassin that came down, followed by a cavalier where you're drawing the card. Another depth.
Another depth's coming online too. And I do like having another Nexus here, right? We know that Rex is going to have ways to interact with our spirits, but if we are still sitting on that Maduke, and we know that's a key way that we are wanting to close out this game from Marco's side, we want a reduction that can stay on the table, and both those depths, unless he has exactly Burning Force, are going to stick around a bit easier than the other cards that we might deploy as spirits.
So looking at the hand of Rex there briefly, I did notice he has a Dream Bomb of his own. Again, something that has been there for a bit, likely waiting for a Maduke, and hey, we do get to pop that Ice Shield, so I think Marco's probably okay with that outcome.
Yeah, a lot of times when it comes down to the Axe Spider, it's some kind of bounce effect to check the absolute Ice Shield, or the Derm Dynas, which we've seen a lot this weekend, just being able to get that unblockable check in as well. So a lot of players, I think, going forward are going to find ways to go under, around, or just return Axe Spider altogether as we look forward to a set 2 meta starting on Monday.
I was going to say, or exhaust it.
Yes.
As somebody who's dying to get their hands on some more green.
Yeah, it turns out it's really easy to run Axe Spider out of answers if you're able to exhaust their board. And there's a wonderful Nexus coming in set 2 that just basically does it for free. You can just tap Axe Spider out of the way. Now, yes, they are getting Infinity Shield, which is a new card in set 2 that lets Axe Spider block while exhausted. But if we're throwing tokens at Axe Spider and they're forced to use that every turn, you're probably fine. But that is a Monday problem for us to look forward to. We are again still here with the end of the set 1 format in the Pro Tour top 8.
And a lot of cores that were kind of just counted out by Rex. I think this is just trying to figure out the sequencing. So we have our bits entering the table. This is likely to kind of chain through with some reductions. So perhaps we're going to see something like, I was going to say another Axe Spider, because that would give you that 2 reduction that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think this is definitely an opportunity where Rex is realizing, I just want to go wide, kind of set up a board, make it very difficult for our opponent to attack through at us. And Snowbit, just being a great chump blocker in this case, can do a lot of work.
And another Mammoth as well. So the Fortress Namengard coming down. I was going to say, it looked like they were considering the 4 cores there, but now they're just going up to 2, which is really just trying to play around a Infernal Curse King Dragon or some other core removal. You want to make it a little bit harder. No, we are going to go straight to the 4.
Yeah, I think if Snowbit's not going to be able to attack here anyways, and you just want to, check them on an absolute Ice Shield, try to get through the removal, because Marco, again, has an absolute grip of cards right now. There could be a number of magics to break up Rex's board. And of course, we're going to draw 2 cards now off of depths as well.
So this refresh is obviously very important because there's a number of cores over there in the trash. You want to move back to your reserve because of the Dream Bomb in hand. Yeah, you can pull them off your spirits, but right now that would mean losing something or making your Axe Spiders vulnerable. Both of those are kind of feels bad, right? So That's the other reason that I think you want those 4 cores on the Fortress Namengard, but not a lot of offense there out of Rex. Just, the one attack, take the refresh, play it safe. And I think that's fair. I don't think you want to go overboard there. As you said, Marco had an absolute stack of cards in hand, and the last time that Rex kind of went all out, they were punished by a very timely Dream Bomb. So you learn from those mistakes when they happen.
Yeah, popping the Ice Shield just to shut down the turn. But we're still looking at an Elephant and double Axe Player, and it looks like another Absolute Ice Shield went immediately packed down for Marco as well. But again, we might find ourselves in a position where Rex is going to have to be very careful on their sequencing with how many Dream Bombs does his opponent have left. We know we have 2 in the main deck, so 1 Dream Bomb left that Marco has access to. And if you can catch another turn with the Elephant, it's definitely something Rex is going to be more mindful of. But we got to be getting close to this Maduke coming online that we know is in his hand. We have reductions. We have 2, the Dragonaga Assassin as our Cursed Spirit. So really trying to figure out what is going to be the angle of attack here for Marco. Oh, not to be missed, right? We saw those Beldegors, and now we have a 4 and 5 cost on the board. So technically, Marco is threatening a multi-attack turn here that could check a suppression or other, spell from Rex's side.
Yeah, that's actually really important because there is no follow-up burst that was deployed on the side of Rex, right? So if it's something like an Ice Shield, that that's going to come from hand, but right now, with the swings, as you were saying, you've got the multiple Beldegor triggers available. So this is going to be a very wide. Yeah, he was asking how many are there. This is potentially going to be a very wide turn.
Yeah, and we know that Marco still has some answers, right? The depths is going to actively draw him into stuff that he's going to now be able to see when he wants to bring back a Beldegor, bring back another attacker versus holding up some cores for just magic this turn.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be about jamming attacks to try to force something else out from your opponent. You see no burst down, so you're saying, all right, are you sitting on the Dream Bomb, whatever. And if it is, then again, that's something you want to get out of their hand if you're trying to set yourself up for a Trio Queen Maduke at some point. Now, the thing you want to be careful of is you don't want to leave yourself too open, because right now these Axe Biters are not going away. And when it comes back to Rex's turn, that's a lot of spirits. Yes, you likely have the Ice Shield that's over there in your burst, but this is essentially you trading your Ice Shield for potentially, somebody's Dream Bomb.
Yep, and Mordred's attack is also going to clear out a spirit from Rex's side, which is really important. He's going to draw off the purple smoke valley. I mean, we have just an absolute grip of cards on Marco's side.
A Maduke on the side of Marco. It's very clearly on his mind because of the way he separated his hand. She was at the top, and then he kind of slid them down, so it was something that was on the mind. It's one of those subconscious things I think you do, right? When you're thinking through your plays, you kind of stop on key cards. And there is the Dream Bomb. So this is likely just going to be, trading the Ice Shield on the side of Marco for the Dream Bomb, because Rex is going to refresh everything here. Will likely send some attacks. You've got no defenders. Now, you do have a bunch of cores on your end, right? So if you've got other answers in hand, you might do that first just to get them to exhaust more than one spirit to force out your Ice Shield. It's going to kind of depend on what you want to be your follow-up turn.
Yeah, the really important thing with this last attack that Marco was trying to...
Well, there's an Ice Shield checker.
Yep. Again, this was coming down to the Durm Dyna versus Maduke that we've seen in Marco's hand. And as I mentioned, getting those Nexuses online is really important because Marco now does have 3 reductions for his Maduke, but he really wanted to try to get in that chip damage on the previous turn so that when he lined up Maduke on the next turn, the Blood Curse is going to say this is going to hit you no matter what, because you either take the damage because Blood Curse on some part of the field is going to activate, or you can't block it, so it triggers it that way, and really just forcing Rex into this Blood Curse will win the game either way. But with that 1 extra life, it does actually make a very significant difference here.
Yeah, Dual Gun Mechlord Durm Dyna is kind of establishing his own little dynasty at this Pro Tour, because it is one of the premier ways to go around Axe Biters. But even in a situation like this where your opponent is not running Axe Biter, it's still a very, very reasonable threat.
And looking at Rex's hand, we know that he doesn't have a magic or a next point of interaction. So this is going to be the absolute Ice Shield check really quick from Marco, and then we're going to see if he's able to line up that Maduke into some curse targets. But they have an absolute grip, so we have to wait and see what the sequence of events here looks like. And another absolute Ice Shield.
Yeah. So the Ice Shield gets deployed. I mean, when you're holding on to what feels like your entire deck, of course you're going to do things, but we have the 0 cost, so that's going to help with some of the reduction. And now we have the Grand Underworld Trio Queen Maduke.
Yep, so we want the Blood Curse, so we got to put her at 6. We do have an Agile.
We do have...
Not putting the Soul Core on it because you don't want to draw the extra card in this scenario. And Agile is a 3K curse unit, so that is going to be small enough for everything on Rex's side of the board. And he didn't have, it was what, Double Rocket City, and he didn't have a way to remove it. So this Agile is just lethal. Right? There was no magic in Rex's hand. The Blood Curse combo is very alive.
Yeah, I mean, we have no burst. As you said, Double Rocket City, and I do not believe the last card was Magic, and there was just the 3-card hand. So this is going to be, I think, 2 games of Marco just showing why having, a 20-card hand is better than having a 3-card hand, right?
Wow, another Maduke in there. Oh, he did bring in the Turbo Rex. No, that would have been so spicy.
Oh, now we're asking for cards in deck.
No, he's going to ask the judge what the exact ruling is, but for when you would draw out. But I am 99% sure, if I remember off the top of my head, it is start of turn, so you can go to 0 on this attack, and the Agile Veil is going to trigger double Blood Curse within this change. Again, I could not remember the 3rd card in Rex's hand. I apologize, but I'm 99% sure it was not a Magic. Right, it was a Curse Dragon. There you go.
Yeah.
So there is no... unless I am missing something egregious, there is no out for Rex's side of the board. The Blood Curse, again, because Agile Veil is small enough, that's the most important thing here. No matter what Rex ends up blocking with, it is going to trigger the Blood Curse. Agile Veil will deal the 1, burn damage with my air quotes here. With Blood Curse activation, it restands, and it has exactly enough cores. Like that 3rd core is so important on Agile Veil that it can then swing again with Blood Curse. You're forced to block it. That, again, the Blood Curse is going to kill you, or the actual Spirit Connecting is going to kill you in this scenario.
Yep, so there you can see it. While this spirit attacks, it has curse, and then because of those cores on our Grand Underworld Trio Queen Maduke, that means that curse is now Blood Curse, and Blood Curse is damage. If you're just joining us, that is
right.
the short version. Blood Curse is damage.
So, and this is one of the things we talk a lot about Axe Spider, right? It is kind of the king of, I'm going to block out the board, and I'm going to make us play a very, fair game, and maybe loosely using that terminology here of battle spirits, where you have to have these spirits that are jamming into one another. But ultimately, you are going to be able to connect on this this first Blood Curse. So I think the only out here is with the Elephant sacrificing itself. You're going to draw the 3 cards. You're going to hopefully hit something off the top, but it literally all comes down to what is available to Rex off the rip.
Yeah, and at that point, it's got to be a Dream Bomb, right? I think that's the only out that would be an answer.
Yep. Well, so even then, if he blocks with the... or no, the Rocket City is not deployed, so the Axe Spiders are still live blocks as well, because Marco does have a spell in his hand if you want to swing with the Maduke and drop her down to 6, but it really is going to be the Elephant or bust. I apologize. He does have a draw available to him.
Right. So what I'm saying is, like, you block with the Elephant, and then the Elephant has to draw a Dream Bomb that you bounce the Maduke, and that's how you stay alive, right? Right.
And he used 2, I believe, right? So let's get a look at Rex's hand, because this exchange is going to happen. The Blood Curse is going to trigger. He's going to restand it. And then we're going to see some very live draws off the top.
So there's the cores. 1. Well, there's an Ice Shield.
Right, but that is after combat, so he still gets to connect here with the... It had to be Dream Bomb for this exact window. Right. I did not see the other 2 cards in Rex's hand, though.
I don't believe it was a Dream Bomb. I didn't see one anyway. But we did see the 1 Ice Shield go to hand, but...
Because, right, you can Ice Shield, drop Axe Spider down to a 3K, but spoiler, that's a 3K to a 3K, so it's exactly matching what we want.
There's a suppression.
Oh, that is going to allow him to buff up the Aggleveil. Oh, what a rip off of the elephant.
So the suppression comes down. What are the options now available to Marco? How do you find a way? There's also still that ice shield there. They're talking it through. This is such a tense moment here.
Nope, it is just going to pass across because the Maduka is not able to check it. So we are going to see 2 draws from Marco's side when Rex attacks, but he still has 2 cards left in deck. We know we have the Absolute Ice Shield down as well. And he is at 1 life now. So the Blood Curse is still a very live threat to consider. And we know that he only has the Absolute Ice Shield, which again doesn't do too much in this scenario.
Yeah, but what about the side of Marco here? I think the real thing to consider is that those double Netherworlds has him down to 4 cards in deck.
Yep, it is very much going to be, this game will be decided on the next turn no matter what. The suppression was an amazing rip by Rex to be able to boost the Aggleveil outside the Blood Curse.
So hear me out, right? What if you have a way to attack without dying to the Blood Curse and force those draws so that Marco then loses the game on his turn?
Well, we know he put the Ice Shield down, and we have the cores on Maduke, so he's only going to be able to get 1 attack in on the Rex side. So we're going to go down to exactly 1 card left in deck for Marco, but important here is that our Maduke is going to be on the board and refreshed with all these cores, so we could just find another Cursed Spirit. I mean, there's got to be another Cursed Spirit in his hand at this point, right? But Durham Dino is going to make it unblockable. We're going to draw the 2 cards off depths. We're going to pop the Ice Shield, which again, Durham Dino just being a great Ice Shield check. There it is. We're going to put it back. We have a billion cores. We're just going to shortcut and say, yes, look at all these cores on Maduke. I'm going to pay 4 of them and then put them immediately back on. And now again, it goes to Marco. Like, this is the turn. We know that Rex is at 1 life. It's got to be the Blood Curse or drawing out of cards.
We have Rex at 1 life, and we have Marco at 1 card. And those are the 2 relevant totals right now. But as you said, you're going to have curse units. You have your entire deck in your hand on the side of Marco. So all you have to do now is make this work. So the question is, do you...
Does he have another pump?
Does he have another pump, or does he search for an answer? Because I was wondering... So, I mean, we have the Ice Shield here.
Oh, right, because he's just going to sacrifice the Ice Shield, block with the Axe Spider, use the cores off of it towards Ice Shield, end the combat, and end the...
Yeah.
Wow, I totally forgot. Yep, that is going to actually end the game. I completely missed that from the... sometimes just shadow blocking is good enough. So the Ice Shield did end up being very relevant because it was from hand. You can always just pay those cores off the Spirit themselves. So really well done by Rex. It turns out the exact suppression into Absolute Ice Shield and off the top, and we're going to go into a game 3.
I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
We want to go to game 3. So now I have to point out what we have kind of mentioned a few times throughout yesterday's broadcast, and I know is a bit of a topic of discussion amongst the top 8 players as well before we started today's event, which is we're going to a game 3 and we're not likely going to finish it. We were already under 5 minutes left in the round, right? One of the things that, the players have been talking about is the Axe Biter deck almost forces you to put an emphasis or a level of importance on that game 1. And so that's why it was so important that Marco had won it. But now that you've forced a game 3, what is your game plan? Do you try to go out fast, get that chip damage? If so, Marco's been very good at that.
Yeah, Marco's had quite a few turns where, again, we would expect to think about this list and say, like, oh, they have the full combo. They have also 4 Black Lances, like we mentioned. But we've seen time and time again where they're just able to start very aggressive, get in that early chip damage. And when we're staring down a timer that is running out, the damage is what's going to likely decide this top 8 match.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to say all of these Nexuses I think are going to be coming out on the side of Rex. All you want is spirits, and preferably the cheapest ones possible. And then obviously you want to keep your ice shields and things like that. And ice shields are massive if you can find them early.
Yep.
In this kind of like overtime playoff scenario.
And also keep in mind, you know, he does have, or Rex does have the 8-0 cost available to him in this matchup. So there are going to be some hands where it's just like, well, I got the 0 cost, I got the early aggression that way too. So the Axe Spider, thought to be more of the slow, grindy deck, does also have these turns where it's just going to be like, well, here's my 0 drops. They may cost 3 cores, but they can both attack. And when we go into turns, that extra attacker out of nowhere can be what decides the game.
All right. Getting ready to jump into game 3. Yeah, I think right now they were asking the judge about like what the turn order is on the back and forth here, right? Because there was already under 5 minutes when they were going to the sideboard portion. They're now sideboarding. I think this is just like a quick conversation with the judges because they know that the time is going to run out while they're doing this, and they probably want to know what their turn count is, because again, when the time ends, then you kind of go into the overtime portion where each player gets a set number of turns, and then at that you go to tiebreakers, and the first tiebreaker is life. That's why we were saying that the early aggression here is going to be very important. After that, if both players are still tied on life, it goes to cards in deck. Now, on yesterday's broadcast, we did have a game that was decided by that tiebreaker. It did go all the way to cards in deck. So we will see if that happens again here in the top 8 of the Pro Tour, which would be absolutely wild. It'd be a great way to start the day.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, we saw
for us, the viewers anyway, not the players, obviously.
Right.
That's not the outcome they want, but I think, you know, the suspense is kind of killing me already.
Yeah, and it was so funny. We got to see that sideboarding action where it was like, we saw them put in the Star Blessed Draw, or Kieran, we saw them put in the Star Blessed Draw and 5 cards. So like, look, I'm going to get this card off. I'm going to get the card draw, but I then also need to make sure that I have more cards in deck. So I need to put in a couple extra. So it's really interesting to see how this can play out at the top 8 of the Pro Tour. Game 3 about to come online. So looks like we're getting some confirmation from the judges right now at the table, just going back and forth about how this match will be decided. There might be a small time extension as well, because whenever you ask a judge ruling question, you want to make sure that both players have full information before going into the match, and there's no confusion whatsoever, especially when so much is on the line. So we might see a short time extension here.
Oh, there's a lot on the line?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just at this big premiere event, you know, no big deal.
The prestige and the glory of being the first Pro Tour winner, along with, you know, that first place prize of a casual $25,000. And that's just the money, mind you.
Right.
There's also exclusives that you win as a part of this event, which are pretty cool, I'm not going to lie.
I finally got to see those Pro Tour, gold stamped alt art set 1 X rares, and they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous in person. And it gets me really excited because the second wave for the Pro Tour will then be set 2 X rares and have that same alternate art and gold stamping most likely. So they just, like, Alice is great because it's a throwback to her Japanese Battle Spirits secret alt art version, so it's extra special for that one. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a couple Battle Spirits Saga exclusives there as well.
Okay, so right out of the gate here, again, I can't understate the importance of this. Rex has an opener with a 0 drop and an ice shield. Like, that is everything that you could want, right?
Yeah, and the Kula.
The Amethystus and the ice shield. Meanwhile, I think this is a mulligan because we started the shuffle again, so I don't think Marco liked their opener.
Yeah,
that is huge on the side of Rex.
Yep. Again, seeing those early reductions in cheap spirits are huge pickups.
We do have, I was going to say, we do at least have an opening play and another ice shield on the other side. So we might be looking at a scenario, depending on how this goes, where cards in deck does become the decider, which would be wild. What a way to potentially start this top 8.
Yeah, do you just take the elemental swing here? Or I guess it'd be full and elemental swing if you want to do it that way. Because again, that first blood is going to be really important and setting up. We have 2 minutes on the clock here, it looks like. We're put the ice shield into burst, and we might just check you and say, hey, we're going to go up in life because we're going to push Marco down to 4, and we're effectively at 6 life as Rex because we have that ice shield down. Right.
Well, and Marco did not place their own ice shield there because we know that they have it in hand. Is that going to be literally what decides the game just now because of the elemental coming down and being able to swing? Still not placing that ice shield. I mean, granted, you do still have some time left. We're not like directly in overtime, but I feel like you would want to preserve all of your life as much as possible.
There is also a scenario from Marco's side, again, being the more controlling deck and having the pieces to remove some of the threats from Rex side that aren't Axe Spider, right? You force Rex to be in a position where they want to be more aggressive, play these things like Fula and the Elemental just to try to go low, and then you can punish them for making those plays. And no development here from Rex. Like, we know he had the Fula in hand.
So the Ice Shield goes down now, but I also can't help but wonder if perhaps the train of thought was, I want to take this damage now because I want the core, and then I want to set up like a big attack, right? So like right now, for example, you can threaten to deal some damage and then put Rex kind of on the spot on whether they want to use their Ice Shield. As we hit the 15-second mark on the clock, which means we will be hitting those overtime rounds very shortly.
Man, was it a soul read on trying to go for the suppression play with leaving that soul core in the reserve as well? I mean, the curse is still going to be able to clean it up here. No, it is just going to be a Burning Force just to trade off with the Agleveil. So they are still going to get a card draw off of the Agleveil because it had the Soul Core on it. But Burning Force only removing one threat in this scenario. Purple generally has a lot of lower BP spirits that can get caught by the Burning Force, but not
and
the
now we're
case
going to have the Core Theft on the Amethystus to allow you to try to push this damage through. So now the decision has to be made on whether or not you want to just take the damage. Looks like that is the case.
Yep, so now some pointing just to figure out who is turn 0 versus turn 1.
Yep.
So 4 apiece, a nice shield apiece, and it looks like Rex, I think he has the Fula and the Elk in terms of blockers for what it looked like. So Elk is going to take a little bit to get established, but that Fula has to come down. You have to develop some type of blocker on the board, but Marco does have a number of cursed spirits which can threaten that even if they try to line up the suppression, it's going to die.
I wonder if Rex was thinking, okay, because Marco has drawn some extra cards, right? I'll save my Ice Shield and then pop it later, and then when we go to the deck tiebreaker, I'll have the advantage, right? However, Marco still has a lot of spirits to play. I think Marco might be able to get one extra damage through. I think you could force the Ice Shield here and then still push through on a following turn, just given the hand that we've seen on the side of Rex. Yep, thinking through exactly what other spirits you want to play here.
Yeah, the Turbo Rex is very expensive. We definitely want to try to find some cheaper spirits, or sometimes just a Bishop will do the work. But again, Fula protecting itself, but we still have a 4K here. Yep, so we're going to go back up to 4.
We force the Ice Shield, but again, that gets it out of the way. So if Rex doesn't find an answer on this following turn, I do think that within the limited rounds, Marco might be able to force another damage. Like, this is a pretty big deal. Yeah. And there's the handshake. So I don't think Rex drew what he needed to draw there, and he knows that he's just not going to have the blockers to be able to do so. That is a wild way.
Because I believe Marco had one more turn, right? For the... I'll have to get confirmation of who won that match overall.
Yeah, I feel like just the way that he scooped and they're not handing decks over for counts, that was Rex recognizing that Marco had him. Because again, we looked at Rex's hand. We know that he didn't have answers. Wait, did I hear that Rex won? We're going to have to...
We're getting confirmation from the table right now who ended up being the winner. Okay, it sounds like Rex. So that must have been the final turn then. So having the Ice Shield set would have put it Marco to 4. So that early, like you said, so that early Ice Shield not going into the burst from Marco's side ended up being the difference in the life total. So it could have gone to deck count if Marco put down the Absolute Ice Shield to go back up to 4, but they, I forget if it was in their opening hand or if they drew it, but
no, it was in their opening hand. So Marco definitely had an Ice Shield in the opening hand. I thought for sure it was just going to be an easy slam down for both players. Rex did have it in the opener, put it down immediately. Granted, they didn't use it right away, but it was at least available. You want that option. On the side of Marco, it was not down, and then when the Elemental hit and got that damage in, like that is kind of the difference maker. It doesn't take much when you're in that weird kind of running out of time, overtime scenario. I'm honestly stunned. It's very rare that I am left completely speechless, but there was so much that was transpiring there at the end, and what a wild way to end this, first round of today's top 8 action. I can't even imagine what we're going to see, once we see top 4 and then the finals, if this is any indicator of what we're going to see for the day. Great games. I felt like Marco did fantastic in getting the early pressure and taking advantage of the Blood Curse in round 1. And then obviously Rex holding on by a thread. If anything, I am impressed by Rex's resilience between navigating game 2 to force a win by decking your opponent, and then also apparently holding on there at the end. So, wow.
The zero cost elementals really being the star of the show again this weekend. It seems like this just keeps coming up. And that last match was a great showcase. And again, really have to give credit to Rex for finding exactly the suppression Absolute Ice Shield off the 3-card draw from Elephant that was able to secure them the game 2. Again, really down to the wire. And then the Absolute Ice Shield play off the Axe Spider being very, very important for them to climb through. And sometimes you just deck out your opponent when they have the double depths online. So it sounds like we got some of the other matches. We're going to go to the bracket shortly, but it looks like we have some special spoilers that we're going to be talking about leading into the Ancient Heroes. So I also have something I can't show just yet, but I got a physical reveal here as well. But we have some digital cards that we're going to be showing off first.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see more cards revealed because I said it yesterday. Card reveal season is always my favorite time. And I just enjoy seeing, what's coming and then doing that speculation, right? Sometimes you see something and you say, okay, well, what does that mean? And so yesterday, of course, we got to showcase the Imperator Manaka, which still my favorite part about that card has to be the flavor text because it's Imperator Manaka. The card type is Imperator, but the flavor text says, don't call me Imperator. It doesn't suit me.
Yeah, and great, too, for those who might be unfamiliar, but these are 2 very important lore characters going back to the original Battle Spirits, so a duo that we've seen a lot in terms of how their lore is being written, and I'm very curious to see what direction that they're going to take. Again, for this new world, Battle Spirit Saga is its own standalone lore development, so what's happening with the Void Lords in Set 2 and how they've kind of wreaked havoc across the realms and Tokiwa being the savior is going to help lead us into the lore set and then also into Set 3. This is a continuation of the story and how the world is developing. But I believe we also have some new cards that are going to be shown for the first time.
These, of course, we revealed yesterday, but we have new stuff that you and I have not seen. So we are going to be seeing these for the first time alongside you, the viewers, at home, or maybe not at home if you're watching on mobile. Maybe you're on the bus or hopefully not driving. But
well, it's yellow, so I'm already in love. I don't have to read the rest of the text. It's yellow. Sold.
I was about to say, we got a yellow card, so yes. Kozmic, calm down. Calm down. God Slaying. This is a 4-cost magic. It has a 3 reduction on it. Has a burst effect. Now, the burst trigger is when opponent resolves a spirit that has a when summoned. And the burst effect says your opponent's spirits that cost 2 or fewer cannot attack or block during this turn. You may pay this card's cost, obviously, to activate the flash effect. So before we even get to the flash part, this is pretty rough against other yellows, right? When you're targeting that 2 or less, obviously the poor Pentons are feeling the pain here. Now, the flash effect says when resolving the next battle this turn, compare cost rather than battle power. The spirit with the higher cost is destroyed in battle. Their costs are, if their costs are equal, both are destroyed. So this is very interesting because it will make it so that your little units can potentially destroy big units.
Yeah, I love this too because it is a 4 cost with 3 reduction. So if we are playing these kind of Lord of the Ground decks out of yellow, which we didn't see too much in set 1, but we will likely see more of in set 2, it's just a very cheap and lethal a battle trick. And then, of course, Suburbia in the background, the Godslaying artwork, getting at, or is that a spear? Is that an axe?
It's actually a trident. So like it's a spear, but it has 3 prongs. I noticed that in the Imperator art earlier because fun fact about me, my favorite weapon type is a trident. Like I'm a sucker for them.
Fair
so you get a yellow card and I get a trident. It is a win-win as far as I'm concerned. But
a good middle ground.
Yeah, essentially it's a type of spear. Yeah, the art is fantastic. I love the theming of this. Both because it's Godslaying, so it's this kind of David versus Goliath scenario where you have the little guy taking down the big one. But I also just really like what this does for yellow.
Yes.
Right? Because it potentially allows your little units to trade up, but also if they have a bunch of little units and you're trying to go wide on them, being able to make it so all of their smaller ones cannot block means that you might open up a big window for swinging and getting a lot of damage in. I think this is a very multifaceted tool, and I'm very excited to see how it gets utilized.
Yeah, I think this will definitely be a big pickup for a number of yellow decks, just because, to your point, its versatility has a lot of room for us.
So the good news is we have another card.
Man, unless the second one is yellow, I mean, I can't. I'm pretty happy from here. Okay. So for those at home who might not know, yellow is my favorite color. And my second favorite color for how it plays out is blue. So we are actually getting to see the first blue card in Battle Spirits Saga that will be joining us in the lore set.
Just when you thought that it couldn't get any better, the first blue card revealed. Revolutionary Xeon. First of all, I love this art. Okay, it's a beast folk, but it's kind of got this kind of sea serpent look to it, but it's also humanoid, and it's holding a gun and a sword. Everything about this is fantastic. It's a massive 9-cost unit, but it does have 4 reduction. The ability triggers on level 2, and it says when the spirit attacks, you may select a Nexus card from your trash and place it.
Man, this is great. So for those that don't know, blue is a color that wants to be very focused on their Nexus cards. So a lot of times what we're going to see is just this free deployment, but for blue cards, a lot of it is normally like 4 or less blue. Like they're very restricting in what they get back. But I mean, this is a 9-cost card, so I mean, it does have to have some good strength behind it, but it's a 9-cost and has 4 cores you have to put on it to activate this effect. But if you're being able to loop back any Nexus card, this really makes me wonder what we're going to see, in the lore set, in set 3, and kind of going forward, that if there is a high impact enough Nexus that we want to just keep deploying time and time again, this could be a key card to do that. And of course, blue will get its own, blue focused Nexus cards that really want to get value out of this. So yeah, huge fan of this card. And also, it's full art. So I think this means that the entire lore set, we've now seen 4 of the 10 cards. I think they're all going to be full art. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, these are fantastic. Again, I love the bordering, love the art. And even just with existing Nexuses, I'm already kind of getting nightmares of folks constantly getting back something like Another World Depths for free, right? That's the big thing, is that you just pick something in your trash and you place it. Now, the interplay with this card when we do finally get blue will be interesting because you and I have mentioned historically the old Battle Spirits. Blue focuses on putting things directly into the trash. And so this is a blue card that pulls things out of the trash. I wonder how much of that we're going to get alongside the kind of that mill strategy.
Yep, blue has a lot of filtering tools available to it, and then also milling out your opponent. So we are going to see a lot more graveyard shenanigans, as it were, within the lore set and set 3. And I also got to give a special shout out to the flavor text here that mentions Sir Manaka had died again. So going back to the original Battle Spirits, Manaka unfortunately did die, but was brought back to life, if I remember my lore correctly. So I think we are going to see a similar play out between, or maybe this is the reincarnated version, right, of Manaka coming back. So I'm curious to see, again, we're going to get a beautiful 30-page lore book with this lore set that's really going to dive into, one, the Void Lords and kind of where they came from and kind of their impact left on the various realms, but then also going forward, what we're going to see for the lore. I'm really, really excited to see this develop because I got a yellow card today and a blue card. I couldn't be happier. I'm very excited with the reveal so far.
I gotta be honest, I was not expecting a blue card today. Just full stop. That was a huge surprise for me.
Yeah, we got to see a 6-color, right? If we go back to Kay, like her ability says get back a blue card. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's one more blue card in there for that set, and maybe we see the additional cards getting into set 3. So how that comes back in the set or how it gets utilized in set 3, I just absolutely cannot wait to see.
Yeah, it is worth noting that this is a lore set that is supposed to focus on telling the story of the first 3 sets, right? So I know that set 2 just released. We're all excited to play with it, but this is kind of intended to have that interplay and that kind of cross development with the 3rd set as well. So even if some of these cards don't stand out yet, they're going to likely have a really, I think, big impact when we do get to set 3. So overall, just very excited. Again, love the cards, love the art. Cannot believe we got a blue card. I'm actually stunned. Wow.
And they're all full art. Like, that's the thing I really want to appreciate too, because you know, in Battle Spirits, there's a lot of gorgeous artwork, but sometimes it can be that lore, the half framing, I guess as we can call it. But all these do appear to be beautiful full art cards. Even the Magic cards, like that's something new that we haven't seen before. Magic cards usually don't have that gorgeous full art detail to them, and God's like is great. It's full art. So I'm fingers crossed we see more Magic cards in the future that are full art like that, because it just looks gorgeous.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I think we are going to be going to a short break before we go to the top 4. So we have plenty of Battle Spirits left to play. Don't go anywhere. That first round was amazing. When we come back, we are going to continue the top 8 action. It's actually going to be the top 4 at that point. So the Pro Tour for Battle Spirit Saga here in New Jersey will return after this break. Hello and welcome back to the Pro Tour event for Battle Spirit Saga here in New Jersey. I'm once again Charmer, joined by Kozmic, and we are ready to dive into the top 4. And now my voice is starting to go. You jinxed it just before we went live. He's like, man, I think my voice is starting to go. And now mine is just failing. But that's okay, because it's from all of the excitement we've had all weekend long. So we are getting ready to dive into the top 4, and we have a great matchup.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we got to see the top 4 develop in the way it's had. We did get to see a sneak peek of the bracket, and it looked like it was an even split. So kind of as you called it, leading into the top 8, we did see 2 of the new decks, right? The Axe Spider on top, and then 2 of the classics. We had the white aggro with Adamas, who was able to continue on, and then we also had our other match, which is going to be featured today. So this one I really, really like, because it really goes back to what do we think are the 2, kings of the format? So we do have a Rex deck that made it all the way to top 4 versus the purple-white Axe Spider. So this is going to be a very interesting match to watch to see how both players navigate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this because essentially the last attempt for Gigano Rex to maintain his lordship, if you will, over the meta resides here with Ryan, right? The last Gigano Rex player in the field. Can he pull it off? There is a chance that in order to do this, Ryan has to beat Axe Spider 3 times in a row, right? Because they played Axe Spider in the top 8. They got the victory over Ryan Miles. Now Ryan Matas is taking on Caleb Albert, who is once again on Axe Spider. And on the other side of the bracket, we know that Rex did move on and they're piloting Axe Spider. So what a world we would live in if somehow Ryan pulls off the trifecta, going back to back to back against Axe Spider to show the world that Gigano Rex is in fact still king.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is going to be the match that decides if we pass the crown or not from Rex onto the Axe Spider. So again, we could see a double Axe Spider finals, or it could just be 2 classic decks. Going all the way, oh my gosh, how insane would it be to go all the way back to a launch event where we have the white aggro versus Gigano Rex showdown? That'd be the ultimate throwback for this meta. But I do want to remind those at home, we do get to see the open deck list for both players. So Ryan and Caleb are very much aware of what each player is playing. And I am looking over Caleb's deck list, noticing some very distinct differences. So of course, we do still have the 8-0 drops. That's kind of like the staple for starting off the Axe Spider list. But looking at this, we do have the 2 Buffalong Bill main as well as 2 Derm Dyna main. Again, we have the side that wants to bounce some threats and also the Derm Dyna that wants to connect through on that unblockable damage. So Caleb here very quickly identifying that Scorched Battlefield is a threat that gives Ryan pretty much unlimited draw, I can feel like, in the red matchup, that if that stays online and if they're able to start connecting with those threats, you're just going to be able to continue refilling your hand with those new cards coming off the top 4, dealing your opponent damage. So I really like this too, because it's not only Caleb who has the spice. If we look at Ryan's deck, he has a card that, you know, many of us kind of joked about, actually, as soon as the...
I have never joked about this card. How dare you, sir?
Sortosaurus is appearing as a 3 of in Ryan's list, which is a card that, you know, didn't quite find a home through all of set 1 meta. And then suddenly, like, there was this great realization going into this format saying, wait, Sortosaurus actually gives us the multi-attack that we need. So again, really stressing the fact that Axe Spider has a couple different venues in how you want to attack it. You have the multi-attack that can go wide with single threats, with Sortosaurus wanting to refresh itself. You have the natural go wide sometimes of Yellow, who, yes, can check those suppressions, but because of Blessed Cathedral, you're able to refill your hand. And kind of the third option that we see time and time again in this Pro Tour, the unblockable side with the Derm Dynas being able to challenge it, or again, the Blood Curse, I guess, being the secret fourth option, right, of having that burn damage over the top. So Sortosaurus could be the key to victory in this matchup of how Ryan's going to pilot it.
Yeah, the biggest issue is that you have to also survive all of this removal. As I'm looking at the list that Caleb is piloting here, 2 copies of the Infernal King Cursed Dragon as well as Dark Bishop Bacillus. So they have that combo twice over in the main, but also 3 Dream Bombs and 4 Suppressions main, 2 Core Thefts, and 3 Burning Forces. So this is actually a pretty removal-heavy version of this Axe Spider list, at least when we look at the main deck. And then in the sideboard, still even more. They've got another copy of the Infernal King Cursed Dragon plus Bacillus combo they can throw in, that 4th Dream Bomb, 4th Burning Force. Like, this is somebody who decided, I wanted to have options. I wanted to be able to control the field as well as block forever with Axe Spider. And that means you're going to probably need more than just Sortosaurus to push through, which makes me sad because I love Sortosaurus. But speaking of Axe Spider and pushing through, we do have Caleb with one already online. And so this is likely going to slow down the pace.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is we do have a trade if we want to try to swing through for damage. So the Flamefish is still threatening to do that 4K block. So if you want to, you can swing with the Flamefish. You know, Caleb kind of has to, you know, either decide if he takes the damage or block with the Elemental, because if you block with Axe Spider, you're just losing your Elemental that way due to Flamefish's sacrifice effect. But we are going to see a Bearded Eagle come online, which is a 2 for 5, so 5,000 BP to Axe Spider's 5,000. And this is really the great showcase where how important that Scorched Battlefield was, because now we would have been able to pressure a 6K Eagle attack versus the 5K from Axe Spider. But it looks like Caleb is just going to take the damage here.
Yeah, I think Caleb properly realizing that if you do block with the Axe Spider here, you end up actually taking more than the 1. Right? Because the Flamefish will die, but will trade with the Elemental, and then you can potentially take 2, 1 from the Rain Needle, 1 from the Bearded Eagle. So by just allowing this through, you still take 1, but you actually slow down your opponent. It's just a very heads-up play.
Yep, absolutely. As long as this Flamefish stays online, it is like those Elementals are smaller, right? So no matter what they do for the Elementals, they are going to get popped by Flamefish's ability. So interesting, you know, it's a card that you might not think of that does too much in the matchup against Axe Spider, because usually they play Axe Spider and then some larger threats that, you know, Flamefish isn't going to be able to catch. But this is a great window of opportunity for Flamefish to get in 1 or 2 points of damage, which is sometimes all you need it to do. And you have the other threats in your deck that can close things out for you.
Caleb here has 1 cost reduction for each of the colors, purple and white, but does still also want to keep those 3 cores on the Axe Spider, which early on does mean you're a little bit limited. I think we are going to see your favorite play here, unless, nope, I counted wrong. That was just slightly off camera. I didn't realize there was 1 extra core there. I thought we were going to have to lose the Amethystis, but going to get this Netherworld Depths online. But yeah, one of the things I just wanted to highlight is that the Axe Spider lists are very kind of core hungry, right? Axe Spider himself is not that expensive to get out, but because he has essentially maintains or like has a grip on 3 cores. Like the moment he hits the table, he's just eating 3 cores forever.
Yep.
He's a very heavy investment over the long term.
Okay, so it is slightly off camera, but we did clarify that Caleb is already at 2. It looks like just briefly missed some early chip damage there, but I can confirm those at home as well. We are at the correct life total, so Ryan at a very comfy 5, but that's kind of just how it goes with the Rex deck, right? In this type of matchup, it's not going to, you're not getting those extra cores out of your life until the exact moment that your opponent wants to, and in this matchup, you're often on the kind of back foot defensive play for Caleb, so
yeah,
we will...
They did it. Now we can see the life total. It was slightly off camera, but they were kind enough to adjust it for us. I believe that chip damage came in when you and I were talking about the deck lists. I know there were some early attacks from Ryan Modest at that time. I just didn't know what the calculated total was, but now we do. So thank you. Production's so good to us.
Yeah. Production and judges alike, thank you for your wonderful time this weekend.
And I think Ryan is also now trying to figure out how they can continue to push the advantage. We do have a burst that is face down on the side of Caleb, so you also might just be trying to get that ice shield out of the way. The faster you can get people down to 1, it's so important in Battle Spirits just because that does a lot for making ice shields awkward, right? It's not just about you want to get them to 1 because obviously they're that much closer to being dead, but it really does take away the potency of ice shields. And so when you can be very aggressive early on, you kind of want to press your advantage. And speaking of ice shield, we can see that Ryan has one in hand but has not placed it face down yet.
Yeah, we do see also the 1 of 2 Dream Bombs in his hand as well, which can be really important in bouncing the Axe Spider in a response to a suppression. So I like the Eagle being able to connect here for 7. It is going to force Caleb to say, like, what do you have in your hand as a response? Because if he wants to, try to battle trick and get above, he has to use it in a exactly this order, right? So he does get the extra draw out of it, but if he wants to use now the suppression, it does open up a window for Ryan to respond. So I think this is just going to be a damage check that's going to reveal the absolute ice shield from Caleb's side, because you don't have exactly as many cores to be as flexible as you want here.
I also want to highlight that I appreciate the patience of Ryan Modest.
Yes.
So if you are somebody who's watching and you're saying to yourself, like, well, if you have an ice shield, why didn't you put it face down in the burst? Well, when you have both a Dream Bomb and an ice shield, you don't want to be in a situation where you want to overwrite one with the other. And if you don't need it, then you don't have to put it down, because at some point, if Caleb does, let's say, play a bunch of spirits and you think you might be counterattacked back, you might not want the ice shield there. Instead, you might want the Dream Bomb as a free tempo play for the crackback. But here, as you said, we do get the kind of damage check, so the ice shield is revealed. And I think Ryan will still be happy with that outcome overall, because you want to get it out of the way.
Yeah, and again, that Flamefish really doing some work and pressuring the 0 drops. We did see another 0 drop, if I'm not mistaken, in Caleb's hand, but it still puts him in the same position. It's like, well, you have to block the Flamefish with that, or you're just going to block the Axe Spider, and then the Flamefish dies, removing the Elemental. So Ryan is doing a great job at limiting the threats that Caleb can block with in this scenario. But again, Caleb does have that Netherworld Depths online. He is getting to draw a ton of extra cards turn after turn, but we do see that his hand is a little bit limited in what he has access to. We do see the double suppression, which is going to be important, of course, for the Axe Spider, and we do see a Rocket City come down, which is going to now be able to check the BP thresholds for our opponent, because Ryan doesn't have a Scorched Battlefield or Volcanic, so that is 1 extra, BP blocking for Caleb's side of the board.
You do see a couple of Giganos there. Would sure be nice if you could get those up and running with 3. I count now that he has given us the entire hand. That is a very a Rexy hand, if you will.
Yep, but keep in mind with that Flamefish, we've seen this kind of same scenario pop on the stream a couple times from this weekend at the Pro Tour. The Flamefish being a very nice aggressive target for Ryan that he can swing with and, check that Elemental. But if he tries to deploy the Gigano Rex, for those that don't know at home, Gigano is he's greedy. He wants to make sure that you have Pterosaurs or Emperor Beast on your side of the field, or you don't get that extra, B level 3 for 1 core effect that makes Gigano Rex so strong. And that we've seen kind of all season long in this first set 1 meta.
So just kind of taking a look at Ryan's list here, because we are still in game 1 of this series. There are no main deck Meckler Dern Dynas. So the dual gun has to wait until at least game 2 before he shows up, and that's going to be very relevant given that Caleb already has the Axe Spider and has those 2 suppressions, right? That means Ryan has quite a few turns, honestly, where he has to present enough to like threaten lethal and make Caleb hit that panic button before he can ever even get there, because there isn't going to be no surprise like I go around you, here's your ice shield check sort of thing. That means that despite the fact that Ryan has a heavy tempo advantage right now, Caleb has a lot of ways to stall.
Yeah, and the double draw there, one from the depths and then one from the elemental dying. I mean, Caleb's getting all the opportunities in the world to draw into another ice shield or the dream bombs and some of the other just strong magic that's available to him. But again, no burst set, so this is going to be a block, and it's going to be some type of respect for, hey, this is just a my little 1K rain needle is going to be coming across the field. Do you have an answer for it that you want to use in this scenario?
Perhaps.
Yep. So draw the card first. Don't forget, you don't have to windmill slam the suppression just yet. You do get to see one extra card, but again, it is that scenario that we do know what's in Ryan's hand, and that Dream Bomb is presenting, the way that the flash timing window works for those at home. Ryan's going to declare the attack. A pre-block flash window opens that Caleb has priority on, so he will likely use the suppression so that he can get a block, preserve his life total at 2 so that he can still set ice shields. But now the flash timing window is going to pass back to Ryan, and he has a very interesting choice here to make if he wants to use the Dream Bomb from hand, which is then going to force Caleb to go down to 1.
He is going to use it. Now, again, looking at the deck list, this is one of 2 that is in the main deck. There are, potentially more available once we go to games 2 and 3, but that is, I think, a wonderful time to use it. It's a limited resource because you only have 2 in the deck, but when you can get your opponent down to 1, potentially, it's a really big deal. But we have the answer back, a huge response from Caleb with the Burning Force to get that 2-for-1 and also, again, still preserve that life total.
Yep, and exactly. And that's the benefit of these 0 drops that we've seen in this format. And what we'll expect to see going forward is just the extra card draw that they enable. Of course, having the depths online is very, very strong, but Burning Force being able to take out 2 spirits there is an absolutely huge pickup for Caleb. We did also see a core theft, so there was also the option of, saving that core theft for later, but you might as well remove 2 threats while you can, especially because that fish was holding back the elementals. But we're just going to likely see a redeploy of the Axe Spider from Caleb that we know got bounced back to hand with the Dream Bomb. And we saw a lot more spells. I wasn't sure if there was actually another spirit in there or if it's just oops all. Oh, I'm sorry. There is not 1 but 2 elephants at the top end, but those are a little expensive right now.
Dual gun Meckler Dern Dyna that we're staring at right now as well. That will likely be the finisher when Caleb does decide he wants to go on offense. It'll be a wonderful way to do so. Right now, not necessarily, I think, super relevant, because with the board state, you don't need to go around things. Of course, I say that, and it looks like it's going to come down anyway. Folks love to make me a liar. One of the things I was getting ready to highlight is on the side of Ryan, though, with that Netherworld Depths, if you could continue to just like put your foot on the gas pedal, there was a scenario where even though Caleb has all of the answers to just never take damage for like the next 5 or 6 turns, you could deck somebody. We've seen it.
Yep.
We've seen it once on broadcast already. And that Netherworld Depths is going to really start to rack up the card draw if you just keep turning stuff sideways.
What an interesting choice here. So we did see that he got the OV Raptidon off the top, which was actually a pretty big pickup, because now this allows him to deploy that to the field for free because it's a 1-cost 1 reduction. And then both Bearded Eagle and OV Raptidon will count as 2 reduction symbols each towards Gigano. Ignoring suppression for a moment, this is actually one of the turns that has made Rex so strong in this meta that you could actually flood out a OV Raptidon into some Gigano plays and just have those big attackers. However, we do have also the other play of looking at the Volcanic Break in Ryan's hand that could catch the Derm Dyna this turn if he wanted to, or he's going to try to pressure it with the Gigano Rex, because Caleb doesn't have cores available to him to get a suppression out for the Axe Spider. So the Gagados here are very threatening in what they're able to do. But again, he's not able to get the second one online if he wants to respect the, Curse Dragon and other core removal cards that we see from Caleb's side of the field.
Yeah, I think this is the right play when you're trying to play conservatively, just because you are potentially going to get that burst check. We see Caleb does have that burst that is face down and played. We also see now Ryan place one, but oh no, we are just going to go wide. I don't hate it, knowing that there's not the cores for the suppression.
Yep, because
we are now saying, hey, with the confront as well, we are going to potentially eat the Derm Dyna and then soak up the Axe Spider and then send 2 units. So this is going to be quite the check.
And keep in mind, both Gagano Rexes do have confront, so it is going to force a block. So the sequencing here allows Ryan to attack with both Gaganos, jump into both the Derm Dyna and Axe Spider, and then also your field's just getting plus 6k. So that
it's just huge.
There's nothing from a blocking perspective that's going to check your Overraptidon and Bearded Eagle in this scenario. But again, we did see a core theft, which again is going to be core heavy if he wants to use it. He only has 1 purple reduction and does not have the cores for suppression in this scenario. I should say, clarifying note, technically the Derm Dyna is going to die. It's going to get the soul core back, and then Axe Spider will have to go down to 1 core if you want to use the suppression, but then it just dies to how big your field is anyway. So I think this is just going to be a check across the board to see what is in your burst zone.
Yep. All right, so the Overraptidon is now on the way. We are at that moment where we're saying, okay, what do you have? Now, again, you don't have to worry about that burning force play like last time because everything is huge.
Yes.
Thank you, Jurassic King Giganorex. It's just so kind of you to lend your power.
Yeah, and 1 is usually pretty good because it's plus 3,000, usually gets you out of that burning force range. But Ryan really said, how about 2 of them, right? Let's just make sure we dodge all BP base removal under the sun. But of course, Caleb is going to be more on the core removal and bouncing side. And here we are going to see a core theft come down, leaving the Axe Spider kind of unprotected with just the 1 core on it. But of course, we have a very limited amount of cores available to Ryan to use here, and the core theft specifically is going to trash that soul core, so that's not even an option either. But we are still going to see a check here with the Ice Shield, just to put it back. Oh, so again, not having enough cores, that we can just still put him down to 1 here.
Yeah, this is, I think, kind of a win for what Ryan wants to do. The real question now, though, is are you going to be incredibly punished, as you had rightfully pointed out, right? The Infernal King Curse Dragon is kind of licking its chops in this board state. 1 core on everything. You don't even need the Dark Bishop. You get all of that ramp and wipe your opponent's board. And as we also pointed out, because of the lack of nexuses on Ryan's side, we're in a really small hand size, right? The red deck has not had the traditional refill potential that you get from those nexuses. So it's not even just that the Infernal King Curse Dragon wipes the board, but it also drastically would limit what Ryan has to work with. However, despite having drawn so many cards from the Netherworld Depths, it does not appear that Caleb has run into one of his 2 Curse Dragons yet. Or at least I don't think so, because I imagine that would have been the Windmill Slam play if it was available.
Yep, and here it is, the Elephant coming down, which I really like too for Caleb's side, because at this point you say, hey, you are going to be gassing out, and I just want to make sure that if we are going to get attacked into with those confront off Gigano, I'm going to sacrifice my Elephant. I'm going to get 3 more cores. I'm going to draw 3 cards, and I'm at 1 life. I need to dig for answers. So we're going to see what Ryan responds with on this turn.
We have an Andromeda off the top deck. So between that and the Volcanic Break, we might be able to limit some of these things and try to push through. There was no burst that was played on the side of Caleb, so it's just got to be magic from hand during the flash windows if we get to there. And so the Andromeda just decides to clean up that Netherworld Depths, saying don't dig any further for that curse dragon. That would be a bad time. Let's just not let you do that.
And what's rough here is we know that Caleb does have a suppression in hand, so we still, even if he's only at 1 life, we still are looking at the Axe Spider suppression play, which we've seen time and time again in this format. So it is just going to be a system of checks going across the board, saying Ryan has all these big threats. Of course, he does decide here if he's going to sacrifice the Andromeda or not to keep Gigano Rex at their level 3 ability, because it is a Star Dragon preventing Gigano Rex to get this big BP boost.
So instead, we are going to lead off with the Overraptidon.
So I think in this case, you're just trying to check and go under the elephant if they have it, sort of thing. But again, those Axe Spiders are looking at 6K here, which are going to be relevant. And I don't think there's going to be a good window here for Ryan to pressure the cores going down off an Axe Spider, so you can try to catch them with it. It is just the sequencing here that matters, because now the Giganos are live, but you are still putting yourself in a position where the elephant is likely just going to speed run in front of this Gigano Rex to get the card draw.
Well, now that it is live, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the Gigano have Confront?
Yes.
So we're going to have to run into them no matter what anyway.
Fair enough. Oh, we saw a third Axe Spider get picked up by Caleb.
And I believe that's now 2 more suppressions in hand as well. So again, all of the tools to stall. This is where you just really wish you had one of those Mech Lords in the main.
Yep. Getting that unblockable damage would be so huge here. And again, we do see the Curse Dragon, which it could just be a very, you know that Ryan has 1 card left in hand at this point. You're going to be able to go into your turn with the ton of cores available to you, and your opponent saying, hey, I only have 1 core each on my Gigano Rexes. I'm just going to eat your board at this point. Yep, I would say, if it wasn't the Dream Bomb to scoop it up, it was going to be, the suppressor or something like that. So Ryan very quickly identifying, like, this game is over. Let's go into game 2. Yeah. Let's try to get to our sideboard action plan, because that was a perfect match. We saw him get down to 1. There is a window where these Derm Dynas are going to be able to come through and get that last point of damage. So I think it's very clear that we're going to have 2 Derm Dynas coming out of the sideboard for Ryan Matas, and also the 3rd Dream Bomb being really big pickups for this kind of post-sideboard games that we're going to see.
So I know that Ryan was one of the players that was talking before the top 8 started today about the importance of game 1. And so if you're watching at home and you're saying, okay, like, I get that Ryan's behind, but like, why would you concede when you're still at 5 life, right? Well, the answer is the game timer. He has properly identified that when you're playing against Axe Spider, if you lose game 1, then that means you have to win the next 2, or at least win 1 more, and then be in a good tiebreak scenario for game 3. But if it takes you too long in game 1 and then you still end up losing, now you're at a massive disadvantage. So rather than playing that out, knowing that, I'm likely going to lose, and if I continue to play, if they don't have their win condition on their end, for example, right? This game could go another 10 minutes or so. That's a 10 minutes off the clock that I want after I've sideboarded for the matchup, and also that I want to navigate game 2 to force a game 3. So this is something that the players were talking about. They're actively aware of, specifically in this Axe Spider matchup. And so again, if you're just wondering, hey, why would you ever concede at 5 life? That's the answer. The clock is very relevant.
Yeah, and also something to keep in mind, with Rex and how explosive those starts can be, unless Kale was able to establish those early Axe Spiders and 0 cost to stall out, Ryan can just go full gas, catch the Axe Spider opponents off guard and get those quick wins, where we could see, in theory, a very fast game 2 and game 3 if it lines up that way. Ryan did have to battle through a field of Axe Spiders, of course, to get to this point, and also in top 8 had to play against Axe Spider and won. So it is very possible we do see a game 2 and then extending into a game 3 as well. But Caleb at this point is just going to be saying, hey, I just want to hold on. I am up a game. I want to just be as defensive as possible, because it definitely does not favor him. Let's say if it goes to game 3, it goes to a low amount of time. Well, the Rex deck is going to be at an advantage, because it does get that early game pressure where you're able to chip away, even 2 or 3 health, and then you win on the life tiebreakers. So I definitely are going to see, or we definitely are going to see Ryan kind of try to chew through this matchup as fast as possible if he's able to, so that they have a maximum amount of time in game 3. But again, if it's a short amount of time left, that is going to be favored for Ryan.
Yeah, so looking at the sideboard available to Ryan Matzes, cards that I would expect to come in. Of course, the dual gun Mechlord Durm Dyna. We've kind of talked about that a lot between yesterday and today because it's so good about going around those axe spiders. There is a third copy of Dream Bomb there as well. What do you think about either another Nebula Dragon, for example, or I see there's a couple of Flame Agnifins.
The Flame Magnifin, I think, is not going to hit enough of the when summoned side of purple to clear out the blockers. And then also the Andromeda is an interesting choice here. You know, because it's open deck list, because you're able to see what Ryan wants to do, you know for a fact he's going to want to bring in those Durm Dynas. And if you leave Nexus cards in your deck, right, it's just going to open up the opportunity to have even more unblockable stuff. Of course, Ryan's going to be playing his own Nexus cards as well. But at the same time, like, Caleb needs those Netherworld Depths, you know, on the board and to get that card draw to make sure they don't just stumble against Rex. So it's really curious to see what sideboarding package both players decide to lead on in this matchup. And once again, we are seeing the Flamefish come across and get that early point of damage with the, you know, hey, if you block this later on, it's going to delete a elemental and take it with it. But we are going to see that elemental sticking on the board to have a purple reduction for Caleb's side.
You know, the Flamefish was such an important piece of the early game for Ryan Modus in game 1, showing up again here in game 2. And I have to point out, there's only 2 in the entire list. They're in the main deck, and that's it. So somebody needs to give those Flamefish a raise.
Yes.
They are overperforming for Ryan in this event.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those cases where Flamefish, unless you're going against purple in particular, like the lower to the ground or even some of the control variants that lean on the early game, Flamefish is something you generally want for like the more aggressive matchups, but it's in at least set 1 meta that we've seen so far. But it turns out it's a very key aggressive piece here with being able to attack to remove a blocker. And then if they block that Axe Spider, as we saw in game 1, it does threaten the elemental dying. So clearing up the board for other spirits to connect.
All right, I have a weather forecast for you. There is a 100% chance of raining needles.
Yes.
That's a rain needle hitting the board to complement the Flamefish and allow, hopefully, Ryan to continue to push the advantage and get some additional damage in. Now, there are obviously a lot of cores available on the Amethystis that Caleb can use for magic if necessary. So you kind of have to be careful with your BP check here, right? The last thing you want to do is go too wide and then get kind of blown out by a burning force.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good call.
I think Ryan kind of realized the same thing I was, which is there's still, you know, it looks like it's fairly open, right? There's only one unit out there, but there's still a fair number of cores on that thing, and so protect yourself.
Yeah, and I love Ryan's hand here, right? We do see the Scorched Battlefield, which was going to be an important piece to help kind of refill our hand and chip through and meet those BP thresholds, because a Scorched Battlefield then protects our Rain Needles at 2.
So taking a look at Caleb's hand, there were a couple of ice shields and some other magic, and it was not looking good as far as like the early game units. And without any additional cost reduction, I think we are going to be in for a slow start. Yes, we have this Axe Spider. We would expect this to come down, and we're going to dedicate the cores to it. But because you have to leave those 3 cores, that again kind of really slows down the rest of your development. And when you don't have much else, if Ryan is able to go wide here, and we know that he has the capability based on his hand, he might be able to get a lot of pressure. I think those ice shields, yep, there's the first one. Those ice shields are going to come in clutch for Caleb to keep him in this game.
Yeah, and we had a chance to talk with Ryan and listen on some of the other players' thoughts, that Sortosaurus being a key piece for just getting those multi-attackers in for when your Pterosaurs ends up getting blocked. And he does have the Sortosaurus in hand as well. So we are able to threaten, again, a multi-attack strategy being deployed by Ryan, which can just chew through the answers that Caleb wants to develop. So,
and it's hitting the board finally. My big swordy boy making his first appearance on the broadcast. We've talked about it a lot, but we get to see it in action finally.
Yeah, and it's really important to note, for only 2 cores, right? It's a 4K, and then when it attacks, it's going to get a 2K boost. So it's going to be able to go over the Axe Spider here, and then during the attack step, you get to refresh it when the other one. So we are going to get to see this multi-attack pattern come online, and Sortosaurus really turning up at a key moment in this matchup.
Yeah, this is why I was a big fan of this when this was first revealed as part of the promo series. A lot of folks were kind of down on it. I was like, why would you be down on this? It's very cost effective, right? It's a 4, but it's got 2 reduction. And with only 2 cores, as you said, you get the level 2, right? You get that 4K, and you also turn on the entirety of the card. And so I was a big fan of this. I'm very happy it found a home. I love, again, it's a Pterosaur, so it fits right into your Giganorex strategy. We're going to see it on display here. The Rain Needle now threatening. See so the wave on the pre-block flash.
Yeah, and funny enough, right, this Rain Needle is not something that we want necessarily on the board. We just want to use it to check a block or check a point of damage because we do want to have those Pterosaurs online for Sortosaurus. So this is a nice development in knowing that we have another Rain Needle in hand to check a blocker that says, okay, this might be the turn where we can check that Ice Shield from our opponent, and we'll see what else Caleb has in their hand that they're working with. But, as we identified at the start of the turn, it was very limited in terms of spirits, but there were some magics, but you don't have a ton of cores to work with in this scenario.
Again, I know I did it once before, but I just want to compliment the patience that Ryan has with keeping that Ice Shield in hand. There is no reason to deploy it right now when you're not in any real threat. So by holding it in hand, one, you give yourself the flexibility if you do draw a Dream Bomb, but also what you're doing, and we noticed that it was very important last game, what you're also doing is you're making your opponent think you have more options than you do. And the moment that Ryan got down to 2 cards last game, when that happened, the game was basically over. So what you're really doing is you're hiding information from your opponent. And I think that's an undervalued aspect of the game. And so here, as I said, there were multiple Ice Shields. We burned through one, but Caleb will have another one available. And we saw a lot of defensive magic once again on the side of Caleb. That was something I highlighted when we were looking at the deck list, right? This was a particularly kind of like removal / magic heavy version of Axe Biter that Caleb has brought to this event.
Oh gosh, counting out the cores for an early Enterprise, which can be really instrumental at shutting off the Giganorex decks because it can just be a 12k double blocker. Then that gives armor to your field, but it looks like we will just see the double Axe Biter get established here.
And I'm a big fan of this because in my mind I say, why would I want to play the Enterprise when I could just play an Axe Biter and it protects itself anyway? And we did see the other burst place down, but yeah, your gasp was very telling of the draw. That's a big deal.
We do see that early Durm Dyna pickup. We do see a Scorched Battlefield in Ryan's hand, so we want to now navigate the matchup. If we can get one more chip damage in, Caleb holding on to not having any Nexus cards deployed because we, again, got to see the open deck list. We knew what Ryan was going to bring in. It's very much up to Caleb to say, I need to find some Burning Forces. I need to get those Nexus off the field, or Durm Dyna is just going to be able to check my, my little bit of life left turn after turn.
Yeah, I wonder what the desired navigation is here, because on the one hand, you do have to get a Nexus down to take advantage of the Mech Lord's ability. So yeah, I was going to say, I think what you would want to do here at a minimum is just get that developed. Unfortunately, what that does is it slows down this turn. You're just really playing for the long game and kind of setting yourself up, and you would have loved to continue to pressure and maybe get rid of what you assume is another Ice Shield there. But without getting that Nexus on the board, you are kind of putting yourself behind. And then we are going to see another Rain Needle come down as well.
Yep, so still being good at trying to, I think what Ryan's trying to establish now is trying to figure out, is this a turn where I can sneak in this bit of chip damage, because the Sortosaurus is going to be able to go to 6k again, finding these magic numbers to get across Axe Biter, and Scorched Battlefield's also giving us another 1k, so this is a 7k coming across.
I was just about to say, what you're really doing is you're giving yourself a big boost, but I believe we have suppressions available if needed on the side of Caleb. So I don't think we're going to get to the point where we're eating that other Ice Shield.
Right. I mean, the way this matchup plays out, you have to play the how many Ice Shields, how many suppressions are we going to see game. So a little bit of back and forth here between the pre-block flash between players. But it looks like Caleb does have something that they want to do. Or just confirming that, yep, Flamefish is not going to have any targets, but we just want to send this Rain Needle across to see if we can connect on anything.
And so this is where you might have to rob Axe Spider to pay Paul, if you will, if you want to put the suppression on the other one.
Yeah, Caleb wants to be careful here because if he assigns it the wrong order, there is a window where this Burning Force in Ryan's hand. And, you know, we are in top 4 of the Pro Tour, but there's a lot on the line. There's a lot of pressure, and you might accidentally assign the suppression to the wrong target, opening up a window for Ryan to play the Burning Force.
Yes, there has been an Axe Spider that was the target of a Burning Force. So we're going to see.
So exactly that scenario that just came up turns out, and Ryan asking, like, are you sure that's the one that you're going to use it for? So do we see the removal with the Burning Force? Oh, no, just a pass.
Yeah, we do not. Wow. Okay. Would love to have known what was communicated there, but
I wonder if it was just a back and forth and a clarifying point or something. But
yeah, that's why I was saying I would love to know what was communicated there, because I would have thought for sure that was the, like, windmill, hey, Axe Spider gone. Like, if you can get rid of an Axe Spider.
Right, huge pickup for you there in that window. But again, we have seen a Axe Spider get Burning Force this weekend, so I wouldn't have been surprised if we see another one get caught in that window. But it looks like Caleb is able to establish both of them on the board, keep them, and now an Elemental is coming down as an additional blocker. But again, if Ryan can find some Pterosaurs for the deck to come online, this sort of source is going to get that multi-attacker. And the other thing to consider, right, you might want to hold this Burning Force for a couple Elementals.
Saw an Overraptidon picked up, so that's another Pterosaur. And we are going to see that deployed. Meanwhile, on Caleb's turn, they, of course, played one of those 0 drops that we've been seeing all weekend long. The Amethystus said, did you miss us? And showed up once again. And now the Andromeda comes down to say, yes, I did miss you.
Yeah.
Go to the trash. How dare you?
Yeah, and I really like this too, because now this is going to, you know, in theory, clear the way for this Overraptidon. Andromeda is going to be big enough with that 3rd core on it, bring it to 7K. Sort of Source is a 7K. Again, hitting these nice BP thresholds, and Ryan is being, as we mentioned, we're going to say it time and time again, y'all, and I'm sorry, but Ryan is being very patient in how they're lining up these attacks to make sure that they are keeping as much of their board as possible, where Andromeda and Sort of Source are going to be able to check these Axe Spiders, and Overraptidon hopefully is going to get that last attack in. But again, we know that there is yet another suppression waiting with Caleb, but he now has enough cores to cast that suppression without lowering down a Axe Spider.
Yeah, which again will buy Caleb a turn, but he's got to find an answer, right?
Right.
What we're doing right now is stalling, but in this situation, we're also not really going to be losing much of the board on the side of Ryan, which means that you can continue to run this back turn after turn. The Burning Force is one of those answers. It is a great way to slow things down. And we see the pass over after that.
And a great play by Caleb here as well, knowing that he had those cores available to him and saving the suppressions for later on when it's more resource efficient, when all you need to do is stop one attack in that scenario. So the Burning Force, well, normally you want to try to hit 2 threats with it. Again, Ryan's being very mindful of both the Burning Force check and the Axe Spider check. So a great play by Caleb here, just being as efficient as possible with those cores.
Yeah, the other reason that I think that Caleb wants to use the Burning Force there is that with the Scorched on the field, there's not going to be many windows where you're going to ever get to hit 2. And on top of that, when you can get rid of one of the Pterosaurs, right? You have that Sortosaurus that's on the board. We know that they want to get the multi-attack. So even when you're only removing one, if it's one of the key pieces, then I think that's a win anyway, and you're happy to do it.
Oh, what an absolutely insane pickup with Caleb. The Gregamar coming down with armor red, armor white. Again, we talked about those dream bombs that we wanted to try to establish and get through for damage, but now Gregamar is going to go up to an 8K blocker with all the effects. So now we have to commit even more resources to this sort of source just to keep checking our opponent's threats. But again, we aren't getting the cores out of our life just yet because Caleb is in the defensive position.
I was going to say, though, we also do have the kind of core clock, if you will, on that Meckler Derm Dyna, right? we've been very patiently kind of doing these checks and getting the suppressions and so forth on the side of Ryan, but we've also been getting 1 core per turn, and we don't have any reduction, so it's going to be an expensive play, but at some point we have to assume you're going to be playing the Mech Lord, and then that's when the game really begins, because the suppressions don't really matter. What you're really caring about at that point is, is that an Ice Shield? Do you have the Dream Bomb?
Yeah, and again, just looking over Caleb's list, just as we think about in terms of answers, right? What's he going to have for this Derm Dino once it does get established? And looking over the list very carefully, it is just the Cursed Dragon Bishop combo, which is only a 2-2 split in this list. So this Derm Dino is very lethal.
Yeah, it's that is the direct answer. And then outside of that, like I said, what you're looking for is Ice Shield and Dream Bomb for stall, and that's it. So when that comes down, that's going to be very effective. It's very weird, because normally what you would say is the longer the game goes, the more it favors the Axe-Biter player. However, because of the early aggression from Ryan, we're now in a weird position where the longer this goes, I think the more it might be favoring Ryan with the ability to close this out.
Yeah, keep in mind, Caleb here has not seen, Adepts, which again, you're kind of in this catch-22 if you play or not for card advantage. We haven't seen any other draw effects other than the Elemental, so Caleb doesn't have that as efficient draw engine that we'd like to see. And speaking of drawing cards, we do love to see the Star Blessed draw here to hopefully dig us for some answers, because I'd have to count the cores really quick. I don't think this is a turn where you can really deploy the Derm Dino just yet, so just filtering for some card draw might be good, and hopefully find some additional Nexus cards would be nice.
Yeah, you would, I think, be able to deploy it, but it would be not really online at that point. And on top of that, you would be stretched so thin that you wouldn't even need the combo, right? Like, you would just fall prey to the Infernal Curse King Dragon by itself.
Yep.
So with that in mind, it's not worth it. But I think theoretically, if you wanted to slam it, you could, but it just doesn't make sense to.
Yeah, I love the second Sortosaurus. And spoiler, it does say other pterosaurs.
Yeah,
so
they will work with each other. That's another one of the reasons I love this card.
All right, let's do the math really quick. Let me pull up the card again. So Sortosaurus, once you get it going, it is a 7K for 4 cores on it. It then gets 2K boost with it, pushing up to 9. And we have the Scorched Battlefield, which is then going to push it to 10. Now, we do know that our opponent is going to have that Enterprise online on the following turn, which is going to be 12K double blocker, which does just close out our Sortosaurus window. But there might be an opportunity where if the game goes long enough, we get some additional BP boost, or if we find a Gigano even, these Sortosaurus are just going to go crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of an arms race at this point, right? One person brought a bunch of swords to an Enterprise fight.
We got swords and axes too, right?
Yeah,
so
you have my axe and my sword and my Enterprise.
Yeah, exactly. And all these jet fighter planes that are on the back of Enterprise, because it is a whole airship carrier, it turns out. Holy cow.
And it's somehow a dragon.
Yeah, an armored dragon. Yes, I guess that's where the armored part comes from. But where the dragon part comes from is certainly up for debate. It looks like a turtle. I think all of us.
It does kind of look like a turtle, but it is a dragon. What it reminds me of, in the days of my youth, I know that was a long time ago. There was a very niche known show called Dino Riders, where the good guys were friends with dinos, but the bad guys would strap weapons to them and they would like shoot lasers. And so the Enterprise is basically just a Dino Rider.
This does feel like an 80s bad film that we really start to enjoy that.
Like everything in the 80s, it was a cartoon that was made to sell toys.
Yep, makes sense.
Speaking of toys, Caleb's going to attack with his new toy, the Enterprise, and actually get some damage in on Ryan. So it looks like the aggression here is going to equalize the life totals, but also ramp Ryan up to potentially be in a position to start utilizing that Mech Lord.
Yep, and so really interesting, we go back to the very start of this match, right? Thinking about that Ice Shield, we at some point needed our opponent to ramp us a bunch of cores. So now we do have the Ice Shield in hand. We can now set at this turn, and our opponent just gave us 3 free cores to work with, which is huge. I mean, yes, at some point you have to start using these Ice Shields defensively when Ryan's only at 2 life, but I think that getting the 3 additional cores here was huge. But also, speaking of huge units, was the Gigano Rex that we talked about, but you have to be thinking, Caleb has those suppressions in hand. So the Gigano double Sortosaurus play is very, very tempting, but I think you just have to force out that Durham Dyna this turn, which is then going to check the clock of, hey, do you have the Dream Bomb? Do you have the Absolute Ice Shield?
I think that the Gigano would have been a bit more tempting if Ryan had a Dream Bomb of his own.
Yes, very true.
Right? Because in that situation, when you start to, activate the chain and then they go with the suppression, you would be able to go with the answer. And so now Ryan finally showing the patience to, as you said, just keep that ice shield so that your opponent would think you had a wide open opportunity to push some damage after the ramp, places the ice shield. And as you said, this is where we see, do you have the Dream Bomb? Do you have the Absolute Ice Shield? I believe that burst card that Caleb placed a long time ago was one of the ice shields, so we should be potentially seeing that utilized here. But we are hitting the point where this game is going to close out one way or another very, very soon for one of these players. The one thing that I would be maybe worried about on the side of Ryan is, like, yes, you have that ice shield. So when the counterattack comes, you will be able to shut things down. But what do you do after that, right? Assuming Caleb has the ice shield, and they do, when you get to your next turn, you're still going to be bringing the heat with your own Mechalord, but what are you going to do for the next counterattack? Because Caleb has established a pretty resilient and wide board, right? The Enterprise means that your other magic options, if you had them, would be locked out. You're just straight up going to need some bodies, I think, to soak.
Yeah, and I love that the Durham Dyna here is pressuring a, we saw the cores go on there, and one of the outs that Caleb might have had too was the core theft. So Ryan quickly identified, like, hey, how many cards in hand do you have? Because I need to pile on cores to this Durham Dyna that it makes it very difficult for you to answer it if you do have the core theft. But I don't think he has enough cards in hand. But, again, Caleb is still pressuring the board.
World. Right? Yeah, there might have been a situation where the core theft could have popped off if Caleb had found an early Netherworld, but that is not going to be the case here. And I think now we are going to see the start of the counterattack from the side of Caleb.
Yep, 2 life. Looks like no burst in hand. We did see the suppression. I think there was still one more suppression in hand just to figure out what he has access to, but very big turn potentially by Cable. Like you have to assume that's an Absolute Ice Shield. Nothing really else that could be threatening. Put it down. You're only going to get one attack.
Our friendly fox friend.
Man, this Snowbit is traumatized from this weekend. Big mammoths, big dual gun mech lords sitting across the table from you. Like, it's scary.
This Snowbit just wants to be a little friend, and instead, it has been subjected to some of the largest terrors known to the Battle Spirits universe.
Yeah, I really love that this this field is still deploying, making sure that Ryan has to win through with the unblockable side of it, because the Enterprise and Snowbit, on top of the Axe Spiders, are really giving a lot of access to gumming up the board. But yep, we see double suppression, and then there's 3 more cards, I believe, in Caleb's hand here. But it does not look like there is a Dream Bomb or an Absolute Ice Shield, I believe.
So yeah, I have not seen one when I have been taking the peaks, and that's going to be a very big deal. I think the other piece of the puzzle, though, is the fact that Caleb is at 2 life, right? So when the Mechlord connects, is it going to be enough? Whoa, there's a second Mechlord, though.
Oh, but you can only use a Soul Core once. He really needs to find a Nexus here. If he finds a Nexus and Caleb doesn't have a way to move both threats, he can just rip the double unblockable this turn.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. He's looking for the Nexus to get that second trigger.
Oh, no. Looks like no second Nexus and no Absolute Ice Shields coming online for his hand.
All right, we are now stuck in the position where we spent those cores to draw, right? But Ryan is still going to need bodies to protect themselves from the crackback, because you did not find another ice shield as well. So that's why we're going to see a bunch of these units come out. We're going to put 2 cores on each so that we can protect ourselves from a Curse King blowout. right?
Yeah, we have to play around Burning Forest, have to respect the Cursed Dragon. We have 3 blockers, but 5 from Caleb's side, so it has to be even yet another blocker coming down on the board.
You know, I was double checking, right? So the second Nexus would not have been a help in this situation because it's very specifically select one of your white spirits for each Nexus each player control. So that's why it
I'm so
would
used to playing white.
right. That's why it would actually still need to be the other dual gun, because that would be another white spirit. So.
We're so used to seeing this Term Dyna be lethal in these purple-white Axe Spider lists all weekend long. Yeah. I did forget the stipulation on it.
So that's why I wanted to double check. I wanted to remind myself, like, wait a minute, I feel like there's another caveat that I'm forgetting here.
So yeah, we are just going to see.
But I was going to say, I think we're also about to see a Gigano Rex potentially after everything hit the board with all that cost reduction. He was kind of hovering over it for a moment.
Yeah, we do have the opportunity to do the really fun Gigano into Sortosaurus play, but again, knowing that we have the Enterprise across the board and that Caleb has a suppression can make things quite difficult for us.
Yeah, the suppression is honestly the real issue, right? Because there would have been a scenario where you could go wide enough. Oh, no.
Oh, and he has the Core Theft, which is going to eat up the... discard. Discard double suppression because there's probably a third one in hand anyways, but that's going to close out the window with the Derm Dyna unblockable damage. He does have a second one in hand, to be fair, so we still are able to block, but Ryan's going to need to find some ice shields so they can at least stabilize a little bit while pressuring with the Derm Dyna side.
Well, maybe, or maybe not. When you see 2 suppressions go like that, you have to wonder, like, obviously we can see the third one, but you have to wonder if you're on the side of Ryan, like, what if I have a window here? How many things did my opponent just discard for the immediacy? Now, I have to point out there was a Netherworld Depths that has now been picked up by Caleb in the hand. The timing is wonderful because he's down to, I believe, just 3 cards. The other cards were the Suppression and a second Armored Dragon Ship Enterprise.
So we're going to be checking the battle powers here across the board. Again, we have the luxury of knowing that Caleb still has Caleb has one more suppression in hand. So this is just going to be, we can afford to swing out here if we assume that our opponent doesn't have a Dream Bomb to force him down to 1. But looks like we are just going to get another Enterprise online for probably the double block value, if I had to take a guess.
Yeah, it could be that, or maybe they're just going to try to go wide and finish this out, right? Ryan doesn't have a burst played. So with only 2 health, this could be a situation where you say Enterprise, engage.
Yeah, if he had the Buffalo build to get the double attack value out of Enterprise, that would have been extra spicy to see on stream today. But it looks like we are just going to check the field because we know that Ryan is going to have to lose a lot of his potential offensive threats here, and especially the double Sortosaurus combo, would have been nice, but we are just going to look at a protection standpoint from the Enterprise.
Yeah, the double Sortosaurus was so close to being ready to pop up with the Gigano, but I think we are going to see these huge dragon ships just chew through some of the units, including the Dino Man. Now, this has to be, in my mind, telegraphing to Ryan that, yes, I discarded 2 suppressions, but I still have a third, right?
Spoiler, there is a third one lurking.
Because you are giving up a lot of potential blockers, and again, because in Battle Spirits, units can attack the moment they hit play. Like, yeah, you swung with 3 and left 3 back, but, I have 2 units left on my opponent's side, but they're Sortosauruses, right?
Yep.
So what you'd have to say is, like, for every Pterosaur, one Pterosaur down could be as many as 5 attacks. So what would you do? Well, there's no burst down, so what do you have? It's got to be a suppression. It's, like I said, telegraphed, but, and there is the Gigano. So this is where Ryan is, I would think, going to force the suppression out.
The sequencing here is a little bit rough because remember, to get the full value out of the Sortosaurus, they have to have one of your other guys blocked. So there's some windows where you want to swing with the Sortosaurus first so that you can get another additional attack in them. But at this point, like, we do have to be very mindful of the Enterprise and suppression plays. That we got to get this Gigano to end up being big, and we only got a 1k boost from the Scorched Battlefield itself.
Or, hear me out.
Yeah.
We can try to Burning Force, forgetting that there is protection.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Which is a very feels bad moment.
Because it's up to, it is a legal play, so you would just say 0.
Yeah, I think they're just talking that through. So this is where we have Sortosaurus number 1. And I like this. I like leading out with this because if they have a suppression and they want to use it on the Enterprise to take out the Sortosaurus, like, you're going to lose one here, but at least you know early, right? And also, just kind of looking at the hand of Ryan, you also don't have many other options.
Right, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Without having the Ice Shield there, you can't go for the Durham Dino plan, but we are just going to see that third suppression come online, and unfortunately, we're not going to have enough blockers against this just go-wide board of what you think would be white control, but is actually purple-white Axe Spider. So, yep, looks like we're going to be sacrificing, get the core opened up, pay the Soul Core, and now we have a perma blocker for this turn that is going to be able to go up to 8k, which matches exactly against the...
And Ryan knows that nothing they can do on the crackback. So with that, Caleb is going to be victorious. That means Gigano Rex will not be winning.
We are finally passing the torch.
Event. We are finally passing the torch. Honestly, that was very well navigated by both players up until that moment at the end, and it might just be, frustration, right? There was a lot that Ryan was doing correct in both games where you got your opponent low and then just couldn't finish them off, right? We thought there was a window in game 1. Then after the sideboarding, we thought there was a window in game 2, especially with the Mechlor Durham Dyna, but unfortunately, Ryan just couldn't break through. Too many Ice Shields, too many suppressions, too many Dream Bombs. That is going to be a nightmare to run up against. And that also means we know one of our finalists for the Pro Tour, because Caleb is moving on to the finals where they will compete for $25,000.
Yeah, which is, again, no small chunk of change. And there's been a lot of, looking at the prize breakdown, every single game, every single round matters so much because of how much the cash prizing goes up and up and up. And of course, as you get closer to that final match, you want to be the first Pro Tour champion for Battle Spirit Saga. There's, again, that title. That's a very important, prestige that you're putting on this, leading up to, again, the European Pro Tour later on this year, and then coming back to North American. So it looks like we do have our last two. So we have Adamasu Williams on white aggro, and then, of course, who we just saw, Caleb Albert on that purple-white Axe Spider. So we are going to have potentially a very fast finals here with white aggro.
I think it could potentially be a very fast matchup. It's also going to be interesting to see how this goes because more so than the other purple-white Axe Spider lists I've seen, I think Caleb's might be the best at dealing with this white aggro with so many suppressions, so many Ice Shields, so many Dream Bombs. There was just a lot of tools. With the 8-0 costs, you do have a lot of bodies. But obviously, Admasu has been very successful into the field, has not been struggling into this purple-white Axe Spider. So they know how to navigate it.
Yeah, and really important, too, as we saw in the last matchup, something we haven't seen in a lot of the white-purple Axe Spider list was that Gregamar that came down, which is known to be very, very good against white aggro, because, spoiler, it has armor white. They cannot Valkyrie miss you, they cannot Dream Bomb you, and that is like the perfect suppression target against that matchup. So Caleb does have a very strong threat in their sideboard.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be an interesting one to watch, and I'm just looking forward to claiming one of these people as the champion, right? Like, that's ultimately the $25,000, very big deal, right?
Yep.
But there's a lot of people, I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of people that has $25,000. There's only going to be one person who can say they're the Pro Tour champion.
Very true.
Can't be taken away from them. So with that in mind, I believe we are not going to be taking a break. Gotcha. We have something to show you. Yes, we covered some spoilers earlier, but we have a physical card in our hands that we want to show you. And
Sounds like it's gonna happen right after the break.
yeah, I was ready to show you, but unfortunately, I was told no.
So we are
I'm
going to
a
be
man of the
taking.
people.
Yep, it sounds like we're going to be taking about a 30-minute break while they set up for the finals, do the deck checks, get a chance to get some water, try to just take a little bit of a mental breather before we play the final match here today at Pro Tour New Jersey. And then, of course, we're going to have the card as well. He's going to steal it from me. The card to show off as well, which you don't get to see the back of it. That's all you get to see right now, which is really cool. So we got to see a lot of.
I was going to show it to him,
no,
man, but I was told we have to wait. I'm sorry.
We're not getting in trouble on this stream. So again, we're gonna kick it off to a short break, and I'm really excited. So let's before I get to it, what are you gonna put on? Who do you are we gonna see the classic white aggro take it, or are we gonna see a new king of the format finally here in the finals?
So here's the thing, I don't want to say it because of the caster curse, but based on what I've seen, and I think that the white aggro actually might have enough to get underneath it. I would not be surprised at all if Caleb wins. Like I said, I think of all of the X-Biter lists we've seen, his might be one of the best at dealing with this aggressive white list, but I really feel like this was a great meta call when you expected many of the Pterosaur players to transition to this purple-white X-Biter, because it is a way to get underneath them, and it's, I think, better suited than, say, some of the yellow aggro lists were into the field. So I do really feel like right now, at least on paper, if you will, that white aggro list has the edge.
Yeah, I gotta give it to Caleb, and so I guess we're gonna balance out the caster curse here, if only because the absolute respect of that Gregomar. Now it is also just an okay card to play in like some of the more white mid-range and white control decks. There's a lot of splash over there, but that Gregomar is a huge key piece of being able to stabilize against the white aggro. And there's only two of them, but again, huge respect to Caleb.
Yeah, but when you combine it with everything else, like what we saw in that last matchup, for example, with so many suppressions and so many ice shields, like I said, I think Caleb's might be the best suited for dealing with this. It's
going to be a great one to watch.
Yeah. So I guess with that in mind, we are going to take a break. I'm sorry I can't show you the really cool card yet. I tried, audience. I'm with you. But with that in mind, like I said, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have the finals of the Battle Spirit Saga Pro Tour event here in New Jersey. We're going to claim a Pro Tour champion. We're going to give out $25,000. And we're finally going to show you the cool card that we've been staring at all day. So don't go anywhere. More Battle Spirits when we return. Hello and welcome back to the Battle Spirit Saga Pro Tour event here in New Jersey. I'm still Charmer, this is still Kozmic, and this is also still amazing Battle Spirits play. We are going into the finals, the grand finals. This is it. This is for all of it, the $25,000 to first place, as well as being the first Pro Tour champion. So, are you ready to do this?
I'm very excited.
I've been waiting 2 days and honestly 6 months, if we're going all the way back to the launch, to crown a winner, and I'm ready.
This is it. Finally, let's watch the final match of Set 1, Dawn of History meta, coming to a conclusion. And, no matter what, at the end of this, we have a new champion for the set. So we started with Rex, we've seen white aggro, and as we talked about at the beginning of top 8, we are now going to see, no matter what happens, because, spoiler, we are going to see a little bit of a mirror match. We are going to see Axe-Spider, who is going to take, whichever way we look at it, the Axe-Spider deck is going to win from this event.
Yeah, that's right. Both of the players in the finals are piloting the new kid on the block, which is, of course, Axe-Spider. This is going to be a purple-white mirror decks that are very good at slowing things down as well. So you and I might be in this for the long haul, a bit of a marathon. I suspect that despite Axe-Spider being kind of the centerpiece for these lists, the real story, the real hero here might just end up being cards like Mech Lord, because let's be honest, the Dyna has been building a bit of a dynasty when it comes to getting around Axe-Spider.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of this, right? You get into these board states where the Axe-Spiders really can kind of hold down the fort, and then you're wondering, what avenue do I have to attack? And of course, we have seen things like the timely Dream Bomb against the suppression, because the flash window does open up a window. Then you get a couple of points of chip damage in, but ultimately it has been coming down to the key parts of the elementals starting you off, getting you that early symbol ramp when you need it, getting you the card draw, going into that mid game where the axe spiders are just going to be setting up that wall. And then it comes down to, do we have Elk? Do we have Durham Dino? What key pieces do you think we're going to see finish the game here in our last untimed, mind you, untimed finals?
I was just thinking to myself, you and I had said, hey, we're going to have a new crowned deck for, best in the format, right? We've said Rex is going by the wayside, but what if instead we just crown Rex Mendoza as our Pro Tour champion, and as such, maybe by proxy, give a little love to Giganorex and the dominance that they displayed for most of the set 1 meta.
Yeah, get to be there in name and spirit with Rex here as well. But again, we are going to see this Axe Spider versus Axe Spider finals. And yes, it is going to be untimed, but a lot of this we're going to see probably the first couple turns of the game, setting up the elementals, setting up some Nexus cards, and there we go, elemental into Rocket City. But things are going to start to slow down once we get to turn 4, turn 5, depending how this ends up developing. But we could see again an early Elk or early Durham Dyna also run away with it, because it can be very, very aggressive threats that a lot of these decks are focused around Axe Spider and getting to block out. If you ignore that with either, again, Durham Dyna, who's going to be unblockable, or Elk, who just says, listen, if you don't deal me the damage, I'm going to burn you one, both of those can get around the Axe Spider game plan that both these decks are so focused on. So I hope everyone has a wonderful staying water, getting that hydrated, getting themselves maybe a little snack, because we are going to have a long match here today.
Hey, speaking of Axe Spider, we had one hit the table just now, but it is not protected. This is kind of throwing caution to the wind. Caleb's saying, okay, if you've got it, you've got it, but I want to get this on the board sooner rather than later, which means you either have a follow-up in hand, or you are just really potentially relying on that cost reduction. Speaking of cost reduction, your favorite play perhaps in the game was just put on display, which is, of course, that Amethystus into a Netherworld Depths. So we have one Axe Spider key piece on the side of Caleb. However, the two Nexuses that are very, very important to this deck as well, especially in this matchup, are on the side of Rex. Netherworld Depths, of course, filling your hand, but the Rocket City there to potentially half shut down an opposing Nexus.
Yeah, and both players do have access to Burning Force in their list. Caleb does have 3, where Rex has only the 2. But again, you really want to try to line these up against the Netherworld Depths if you can. So there's definitely a point where, yes, getting rid of that Axe Spider can look tempting, but that's really going to be the Netherworld Depths. Once it gets online and getting that card draw engine is really going to be the key piece to running away with this match.
I actually want to point out the respect that Depths commanded just now, because Caleb had both the Amethystus and the Axe Spider available, ready to go, chose not to get any chip damage in, probably because, again, they don't want to leave themselves open for a counterattack, but also you don't want to give your opponent too many cards, and with that Depths there, it makes it that much more punishing when you turn your card sideways.
Yep. And again, we are going to see kind of that Drago going back, and Caleb really trying to want to find the Burning Force or something to at least get them back to either you kill the Depths outright, or you find a couple key pieces to make it feel not as bad for when you're attacking out, or maybe you just find a very aggressive window and you're going to try to close it out in 2 turns. Then you can start turning with that Depths. But at this point, Rex is going to be considered a little bit ahead with the Rocket City and the Depths, getting to get card draw for themselves while denying their opponent a little bit. And if they can find their own spirits, start to get aggressive.
Yeah, I do want to point out that with the cores on that Rocket City, what Rex has realized is that Caleb wants to dig. They want to find that answer. It was very apparent with the past before that they are respecting the card advantage generated by Depths, but that also means, hey, if they don't have the answer, we're just not going to let them find it by putting these cores on the Rocket City and denying some of those potential draws, right? Whether that's sacrificing the Amethystus by swinging in, or Purple has some on-play draw effects as well.
Yeah, and I love that we just see the core up here on Snowbit. Maybe if we got to pick a favorite elemental for the weekend, I guess we do have to give it to Snowbit, who's been making an appearance multiple times and having to stare down an army in multiple games we've seen across the top 8. And once again, just kind of Snowbit holding down the fort here, just being an elemental that is going to threaten a draw if it connects. But again, that Depth's really holding Caleb back here.
Yeah, the fantastic friendly fox, as I like to call it, the Snowbit, has done a lot of work this weekend. I don't know, I'm a bit partial to the Amethystus, both because it sets up the Netherworld, but also Amethyst is one of my favorite gems. Fun fact about me: purple, top tier color; amethyst, top tier gem.
Yeah, I feel a little bit maybe biased because if I'm not mistaken, it's also going to be, my birthstone. So maybe I should be more leaning towards purple as being a winter baby myself. But I mean, I gotta say, both of these lists really capitalizing on the full 8 zero drops. 4 of the purple, 4 of the white, because again, you want to have those reductions established. So I think they've both been real MVPs. As of course, we do see the purple white axe spider making it to the finals.
Ice Elemental Snowbit. It will forever still be a fox to me. Like, I know that it's an elemental. I know it's not actually a fox, but when I look at that thing, I just see a cute little fox. Okay.
I think we can take a vote on it. I think most people would say it's a fox. It definitely has like those longer ears. Like if it had a different form to it, it might say bunny, but I definitely think we're going to give it up to the fox. But here we go. We talked about what are we going to see a stabilization of? What are we getting on the board quickly? And Rex is the first to drop the elk, a key piece that's going to be able to close out the game and really putting Caleb on the side of, look, I have to deal a point of damage or this elk is going to start coming online next turn. Of course, it does need the 3 cores, but remember, we have adepts on field too. So this is really putting Caleb under a lot of pressure early on and very early in the game even to have the elk and depths kind of combo online.
Yeah, Divine Moonsky Beast Fanatech Elk. When this hits the board, it puts you into a bind because you need to deal damage or else you take damage. But also, in order to deal damage, you have to turn your card sideways, which means Rex will be able to draw cards from the Netherworld depths. Now, we do see Caleb's hand. Dream Bomb is certainly a way to slow it down. Doesn't get rid of it permanently, but it would prevent the damage in a pinch. One of the important pieces, however, about Elk, more so than the Dyna, for example, is that it doesn't really care about absolute ice shield, right? You can keep yourself alive, but it's not shutting down an entire turn, right? A lot of times when you have the dual gun Mech Lord, you'll be swinging to start, but you might be trying to set up a follow-up, and the absolute ice shield will obviously shut all of that down. But with the Elk, it's just buying you 1 extra activation. So it's really a great place for Rex to be this early in the game.
Yeah, and we do see that he has 2 of them in the list, so this is going to be the first elk. But there's also an opportunity. We might see, if the game develops that way, we might see a second elk come online, and then you have 2 really strong blockers and actually burning 2 damage a turn. So because both these decks are going to be a little bit slower in nature, we are going to see how they build up turn after turn. But Caleb here going in for the first blood of the finals match, getting in a point of damage. But again, with looking at the board state, they have the depths, they have the elk. They really need to either decide, is this the turn that I'm going to put on the pressure so that I can find a way to chip down their life low enough to where that Derm Dyna is going to end up finishing me out the game? Or is my opponent going to be able to stabilize behind the depths and elk package turn over turn? So we're going to see a draw off the depths here. And now Rex gets to decide, does he want to keep that elemental on board, or do you want to preserve your life total? Because on the following turn, that could be a card draw as well.
So as I'm taking a look at what would potentially be answers for Caleb to this elk, right? I'm paying attention specifically to the main deck. We have 3 copies of Dream Bomb. Again, we saw the one that was in hand. Outside of that, however, we don't have things like Volcanic Break. So what Rex is going to be worried about are cards like Core Theft, and then I believe the Curse combo as well, if you are left open.
Yep.
What I also really enjoy about the Elk, and one of the reasons it's a favorite card of mine, fun fact for those at home, when I first learned how to play Battle Spirit Saga, a good friend of mine named Matt, aka Kozmic, came to my house, brought some starter decks, and he brought the white starter deck. My first win ever was behind a dual elk stonewalling of Kozmic. So
yeah, it hurt a lot. Those elks really start to stack up. But speaking of stacking up, we got these cores stacking up across the board, threatening a double draw from the elementals here, and just kind of checking across, because now we can speed up the elk, right? We don't see a burst set. It looks like Caleb is just going to take some damage, and this elk is now going to be online as well. So if we see like a suppression from Rex, it's not maybe as good as, the Axe Spider and having the pro color protection side of it as well. But turns out when elk blocks, it's just as good as an Axe Spider at that point. So as long as you get to the blocking phase, you're go with it. Oh, a Dream Bomb.
Yeah, so I think what's happening here is Caleb is trying to open up a counter attack. So the elemental should still be connecting, but with the removal of the elk, you have the ability to push damage if you want. Yeah, so there's the damage that's going to resolve from the second elemental attack. But you have an opponent who is now wide open. There are some cores still available, though, right? Obviously, the elk had 3 cores on it. The elementals have their own cores. So would Rex be open to opening a suppression up on one of these elementals to slow things down? Maybe. Certainly have enough to play their own Dream Bomb as well. There is also the burst that has been played by Rex, so they could buy themselves some time with an Ice Shield.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the suppression play could line up with letting Axe Spider connect, and then you could do a suppression on the elementals if you really wanted to, but I think we definitely want to see those getting saved for a later turn.
What a contrast of boards. On the one side, Rex has essentially all of the engine pieces you want. You've got a late game threat with the Elk that they're going to likely be replaying, and then you've got both of your key nexuses. On the other side, Caleb has the Axe Spiders that are, again, kind of the centerpiece of this deck when it comes to stalling and activating all of your synergy. But they're also not technically the way you're supposed to win the game, right?
Yep.
Like, that's the interesting bit. The deck is called Axe Spider very often. Obviously, everyone mentions Axe Spider when you're talking about this purple-white list, but it's not what you use to actually win the game. It's just what enables you to get to your end game. And so Caleb has that, but doesn't have the end game. Rex has the end game, but doesn't have the Axe Spiders. We're going to see who wins this tug of war.
Yep, and what's really interesting too here is we have the Rocket City that when blocks, it's going to give it plus 1k. So I had missed that temporarily, but so the Elemental is a 2k. Suppression is going to give it plus 3 to go up to 5k to then match the Axe Spider. But then all of a sudden, we have a Rocket City, which is also going to make it a 6k. So this single suppression on an Elemental actually does just stop the turn. We focus...
Yeah, that was why I was saying earlier, would you just put it on the Elemental? Obviously, I don't think you would want to put it on the Elemental and then just lose it in a trade anyway. That would just seem silly. But because of all of the BP bonuses there, it would just stop the turn.
Yeah, it doesn't come out too often because, again, it's going to be either unblockable damage or Axe Spider just being immunity. That the power boosting effect of Rocket City doesn't matter all that much. It's just really that discarding effect we care about. But here it did actually come up. And if I'm not mistaken, this might have been the first time it had come up outside of Maduke matches all weekend long.
Sometimes those elementals, they surprise you. And by sometimes, I mean literally all weekend long. They have been kind of unsung heroes. It's so funny that, again, this deck is called Axe Spider, but really what makes it hum is everything around the Axe Spider. The Axe Spider is just the enabler. The elementals don't really shine without the stall tool, and the late game cards don't really shine without the stall tool. But the stall tool is just that, a tool.
Yep, and here we see just some quick core shifting around just to make sure that that elk is going to be at 3. And going back to what we said earlier, right, core theft is one of the key cleanup pieces that we're going to see out of both of these decks. So that elk with only 3 cores on it, you know, if you discard 3 cards, that's going to clean up the elk. Keep in mind, though, Caleb, outside of the elementals, has not seen a lot of the draw power that the deck can lean into. So you have to wonder how many cards can they really afford to pitch when staring down this elk.
Yeah, that would be a very hard algorithm to solve mentally, I think, because on the one hand, you want to get rid of that elk, but when you don't have your own Netherworld depths or any other way to reliably refill your hand, as you said, would you want to essentially spend 4 cards to kill 1? It is one of the best ways to get rid of it right now, but wow, that would be a hefty price.
Yeah, and again, with the elk getting Dream Bond, we did have to spend the turn to redeploy it, but I would not be surprised if when we get back to Rex's turn, we just see a core up to 5 and him quickly identifying, like, look, this elk has to go the distance for us to get that burn damage time and time again because our opponent already has 2 Axe Spiders stabilized.
Well, I got a sneak peek at Caleb's hand here, and there is a Dark Bishop.
Does he have the other piece? I see an Enterprise. He does.
He has a Curse King as well, along with 2 Amethystus when you start trying to worry about the core reduction. I don't think it's going to happen this turn, but as we consider a game plan for the long term, we might see like a couple of elementals come down and then you can windmill slam the combo, which would open up a lot because with no Axe Spiders, again, I pointed out, no Axe Spiders on the side of Rex. You have literally everything else, but with no Axe Spiders, nothing would be surviving that combo, right? So you would have a clear open lane for a potential push.
And
minus burst effects, obviously. Again, we know Rex has that burst down, etc. But
yeah, you can see there just really quickly, Caleb counting it out with the elemental. You play the other one, you just can cheat up an extra resource, as it were, right? Because when you play a card, you determine the cost based on reductions and then pay for it. So the amethyst definitely count as 2 of them per. And instead, we're just going to see a third axe spider come down.
Why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you just establish dominance?
Yeah, we have we talk about how this is an axe spider finals, but you would only know it from looking at one side of the deck and maybe not table and not the other, because it is just the elk and kind of it looks like a typical purple-white control variant, where axe spider is now just turning sideways, and yeah, it's a 5k attacker here. But so Rex is very happy to draw some extra cards with each one of these attacks anyways. And again, we still do have a suppression play if we need to with the elk, which could stabilize us for a turn.
What I like about this is that by going wide here, you are potentially trying to force out what you assume is that absolute ice shield sitting face down. But the drawback, right, when you take this route is you're giving your opponent so many cards. So yes, the absolute ice shield does come out. I think that's exactly what Caleb wanted, because you want to be able to play that combo when your opponent has far less ways to stop your Curse King play, right? However, when you do this, you also just donated like 3 extra cards due to Netherworld Depths. Like, that has been such a linchpin here for Rex in this matchup, because yeah, you got rid of the absolute ice shield, but whatever. I probably drew another one with that fist full of cards, and I did happen to catch that Rex now not only has the elk, but I did happen to see our friend Dual Gun Mech Lord Derm Dyna as well.
Yeah, and it's for those at home, as players kind of adjust their field, if they're, maybe left-handed or right-handed, the burst area can move a little bit around, but it looks like for Caleb, it is at the bottom of the screen there. So there is a turn here where Rex does have a Derm Dyna be a very aggressive with it, and you have a Ice Shield backup, and you can just force it out from your opponent. But it looks like we are just going to be playing a big ol' elephant to get some cores back for us.
Yeah, I actually really like this play as well. I would have not faulted Rex if they decided to go with the Mech Lord here, but when you play the elephant, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to swing with both of these if you want, and then that would also potentially force out any bursts from Caleb. But what that also means is by forcing out, say, an Ice Shield or whatever, when it comes back to your turn, now you're forcing Caleb to re-attack back into you as well, or else they take damage from the elk. So this is a great way to navigate this, because you are getting really value from the Mecha Beast Fortress Namagard on your turn and on your opponent's turn, because of what it is then forcing them to do.
Yeah, and I definitely like that with the look that we got at Caleb's hand, right? We think about what are we going to get disrupted by in this board state, right? And with only having the one spirit on board, maybe it's not the best time yet, but if Rex was able to establish a little bit wider of a board, that Bishop Curse Dragon combo.
I mean, I was about to say this has to be the play, because yeah, you could swing with your wide board, but what you would be potentially setting yourself up for would be another suppression play, right? You could just block with the elk, stall out the entire turn with a suppression. Obviously, Rex also still has the burst down, which could be another ice shield as well. But by doing this, what you're doing is saying it has to be that burst, right? Because it's going to be Dark Bishop into what I assume is the Curse King. Now, the drawback here is that you are ramping your opponent very heavily. The Fortress Namagard, when this is destroyed, is going to provide 3 cards and 3 cores.
Yeah, and that's what I was lining up with. I like the defensive option here. It's like, yes, you're going to kill my elk, but I am going to get value out of it if you pull off the big combo. So Curse Dragon here costing 5, and if we look at the cores that are available to Caleb, it does kind of restrict him on what he's able to play here. So he does have to give up a lot of his own board just to answer this elk. And again, Rex is probably feeling still pretty comfy. We're going to ramp 3, and we're going to draw 3 cards, and my opponent had to lose some cards with it there as well. So could be a really quick restabilization turn for Rex based on the cores and cards that he just got. And again, don't forget, we still have to attack if we're going to do it this turn. Right. And he has the depths online.
Yeah, so I would expect at least one attack here, because you need to try to force that burst out or any of the answers that were drawn. Obviously, Rex has probably what feels like a third of his entire deck in his hand at this point. Yeah,
look at that grip. Oh, love to see it.
That is a fan. But you want to force them to use resources. If you expect this to go long, then every time they use something, and again, this is going to be another ice shield here, that's one less you have to worry about later.
Yep, and I like the idea of just being very mindful of how much life you have left. You have a huge grip. You probably have another absolute ice shield. You want to just re-establish your board right away, and you also don't want to draw too many cards because it's nice to have this big grip. But we saw the Derm Dyna, so we know we have a game ender. We have some stabilizers with the Mordred if he plays something that we can strip cores from. So Rex really does have a number of different plays that he can line up on this kind of recovery turn as we think about after as a follow-up to the Curse Dragon Bishop combo.
I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but when I think about potential plays, this stands out to me as a great time where I would consider the Mech Lord. And the reason for that is when I see no bursts currently deployed for Caleb and a limited number of cores on your units that are available, right? When you consider the things that could stop it, you would either be forcing out a really key resource or you'd be getting them down to 1, which is one of those really important thresholds. But it does look like Rex has finally found an Axe Spider, and that's also pretty relevant.
Yep, and you can see he shuffled the Derm Dyna to the front as well, so it's a little bit harder to see with the core cards as they stack up on one another, but we just ramped 3, right? We might have enough cores here to go for the Axe Spider into Derm Dyna and to, hey, I'm just going to check you to see if you have something in hand. And again, Caleb only has, I think, 5 cards in hand at this point, so the likelihood that he has an answer is going to be very, very limited.
Yeah, with so many options.
Oh, and another ice shield. There we are.
Another ice shield.
Because why not? Hey, again, we did draw like 20 cards, to be fair. All right, we gotta zoom in here and see how many cores do we have available. Because
what are we counting out here? I see a pile of 3 over there, which I assume are going to be reserved for this Axe Spider, because you're gonna do 3 and then put 3 on it. Yep. And now what you have to decide is, do you want the Enterprise or the Derm Dyna here? And I think what we're going to actually end up seeing is the Derm. Yep, there it is. Because again, we want to force Caleb to have an answer.
So the thing I was going to wonder here is how many cards does Caleb have in hand versus a core theft, right? Because you still want to make sure you have 2 lines here. You play the Derm Dyna knowing you can put enough cores on it to dodge the core theft. So at least if it's Dream Bomb, it goes back to your hand, right? That's fine. Or you establish the Enterprise, so on the next turn you can set this up. But again, Caleb doesn't have a burst set, so there's no Dream Bomb, there's no Ice Shield to stop us. And it looks like we have, 6 cores on Derm Dyna, which I think is just enough out of Caleb's reach. Or sorry, you're going to spend this whole core, so 5.
Yeah, but 5, again, if you have 5 cards in the hand of Caleb, then that still would not be enough. And the key here is there are 2 Nexuses on the table. So with 2 white cards, I think that they have just said, all right, that's it, because we are putting the 5 life back, so that will end it, right? 2 white units, 2 Nexuses, 1 Mech Lord Derm Dyna. Yeah, seems like it went exactly the way we expected, which is that's going to be, I think, the all-star of this matchup between that and the Elk. But what an interesting thing, because again, the back and forth was one side has the Axe Spiders, but the other side had the answers to Axe Spider, and I think that's the really important piece here.
Yeah, the Axe Bears can be really great against other decks, especially with Rex and some of the lower the ground yellow decks that you can just block them out. You don't need a bunch of extra cards, but in this matchup in particular, right, we saw the Elk get established early, which still applied a good amount of pressure and allowed him to swing through. And then we also saw the Derm Dyna follow-up. So again, with both players having open knowledge, open deck list here of what each player is going to be bringing in, as long as you respect the core theft and the Dream Bomb, if you want to set up Enterprise, if you just set up enough cores on it, like we saw that last turn, you can just make sure that damage is going to connect, which is exactly what happened to win that game 1. And looking at sideboards here, so I got Rex list pulled up. We have 2 more Derm Dyna, another Rocket City I do like. A Burning Force you might consider for the depth side of it, because again, Axe Spider can only protect the Rocket City if that's what you're trying to establish on the board. And Netherworld Depths just unfortunately gets hit. So what do you like out of Caleb's list for a sideboard pick?
Yeah, so the interesting bit with Caleb's sideboard is that we have another set of the Dark Bishop and Infernal Curse King Dragon. And that was very relevant in this first matchup. We do also have another dual gun mech lord, and very apparent that that's important in this matchup. But one of the other things that jumps out to me is the inclusion of an additional burning force, another dream bomb. Those are great for slowing things down. I don't think that the Storm Beast is going to make it in. I think that's just for the yellow matchup. It is a kind of a cheeky inclusion there, though. And,
well, what's also funny about Storm Beast Emperor Thunder Leon is that he does burn everything that is 2K, which does, oddly enough, hit the elementals. But again, I think that is going to be for more of the absolutely low to the ground spirits. I'm actually curious how much that card came in this weekend, if it was relevant at all for kind of catching their opponents. If they try to set up like 3 elementals, then it's a 3-for-1. That might be a consideration. But we are going to give our players some time to, again, check the deck list, determine what they're bringing in, making sure sideboards are all set. Because again, there's no timer here. It is going to be however long this match is going to take. We are going to sit here and wait until we have a grand champion selected. But as we saw in the last match, spoiler, Durham, Dyna, and L can just end games quite quickly. So if we see another, game 2 or a similar where one side has the depths, you have the elementals to get all that cycling, and you just find your big threat first, that's going to win you the game. It is going to get in those last couple points of damage.
What a story it's going to be if Rex does go on to win this, because again, we were talking about how Gigano Rex has been retired as the champion of the format. However, we still might crown Rex Mendoza as a champion. There's a part of me that kind of wants to see it just for that alone, but Caleb's not going to go up or go out without a fight. I think what we're hoping for, if we're Caleb, is to just draw another World Depths. That felt like one of the most important pieces of this, is when that early Netherworld hit the table. It really slowed things down. We saw Caleb respect it quite a bit.
Yeah, I really like the opportunity here for players to play this game, get a good match. But, I got to say, I'm going to be a little bit greedy here. I want to see a Game 3. I feel like you always want to see a Game 3. When you get to the finals, you get to have everything come down to that one match. So I wonder if we're going to be able to end up seeing a Game 3. Okay. Ooh, like the low drop. Oh, man.
I was about to say, I really like this Elemental into an Axe Biter start on this side of Caleb. But then we see, first of all, our friendly Fox friend, the Snowbit, which is going to make an appearance here very early, and there it is on the side of Rex. But we already saw Axe Biter and Netherworld Depths, so okay, we got a game.
Yeah, we have a very live draw for both players. I think will be interesting to see what the follow-up draws look like. But I gotta say, one of my favorite turn 1 plays that has come out of this weekend is just like, all right, 0 drop, throw all my cores on it, pass, and just making sure that you establish that early blocker with card draw if you really want to. But same thing with Game 2, like we saw with Game 1, right? We're likely going to see quite a bit of just the set up a Nexus, set up some elementals, get those reductions live so that you can play the Axe Spiders a little bit easier in each one of these matchups, and see, an Axe Spider versus Axe Spider wall we might end up being developed from both sides here, since both players do have Axe Spiders.
One of the things that I haven't mentioned on this weekend's broadcast is that I love this 2-player mat. I just really like the map and the way that it's laid out. I'm actually a little envious of it, to be honest. I have one of the black ones, the sleek, tournament ones, if you will, and I use it. I like it, but I would appreciate one of these 2-player mats. They are gorgeous.
I would really love to see another 2-player mat, because Bandai has done this in other games where they get additional 2-player mats out there. So, maybe it's a once-a-year thing, but I'd love to see a lore-relevant 2-player mat updated. Once we get to the new story arc, the new chapter, maybe we have another, for Nova Maduke showdown that we saw in set 1, maybe there's a new threat, right, that we want to battle it out against. I'd love to see a 2-player mat for that.
Well, here's a new development. Caleb has played in Nexus, which we didn't see at all in Game 1. So we have a Rocket City that has hit the board with 2 cores on it, which, again, when Rex finally does develop that Netherworld Depths, will at least slow it down half of the way, right? Because of the way the turns work. But every little bit helps. Caleb was clearly behind. When we talk about cards in your hand as a resource, Caleb was very far behind in that first game, and it showed.
The second time here on the Pro Tour weekend,
wow.
I've talked about this. It finally happens. An Axe Spider catches a Burning Force. Woo! That is taking out both threats on Rex's side of the board here.
Absolute stunning play. What's also interesting? Game 1, we saw Caleb play an Axe Spider with just one core and was unpunished, and then comes back with a huge Burning Force. But Rex says, okay, well, that Burning Force, maybe you wanted to save that for my Nether.
Oh, he has a second one, an immediate follow-up. No depths, no Axe Spider for you. I'm sorry. Okay, Caleb, let's go. He definitely wants to win this game too.
Wow, and did you see the rest of that hand?
No, I just missed it.
So Absolute Ice Shield is also in the hand, which is great when you need it, but I also saw the Mech Lord. So Caleb has in hand the card that you want to close this game out. We might see Caleb come back with a vengeance here.
Okay, couple more Axe Spiders and the Enterprise, but you're going to need time to set all of that up. So really curious to see how this is going to go. But the double Burning Force turns back to back, really just resetting Rex back to the start of the game, right? Those 0 drops are so important for being able to set up a turn where you can get out multiple reductions, right? 0/0 into like an Axe Spider, for example, if you really need to. But now Rex is looking at the cores available to him. And again, it is going to be a slower matchup, so he does have a couple turns to kind of reestablish the board. But you have to be thinking in which direction you want to take this, because deploying an Axe Spider is certainly what we're going to see here. It's very, very good. But that's all you're doing with your turn. That is going to take all of your cores in this regard, because you want to make sure that the second one now is going to be able to stick on the board, providing that reduction, very much needed reduction long term.
Caleb will likely answer with an Axe Spider of his own. He has had that one since the opening hand. I don't think we're going to see the dual gun quite yet, just because the cores aren't necessarily there to support it. And so we might just kind of see this arms race of Axe Spiders back and forth for a little bit. But the fact that Caleb has all of the pieces really this time, right? We got some Nexus help. We did find an Axe Spider, but we also have that dual gun Mech Lord in the hand of Caleb. It's a much different game this time.
And the other part too, right? We saw in that game 1 how the Elk came down early enough and was a very real threat. But with Rex losing those 2 white reduction symbols, it's going to be a lot harder to develop an Elk onto this board. And also looking at Caleb's hand, yep, there's the Axe Spider coming back down. But it looks like we already had one piece of the cursed combo there. We did see the Bishop entering the hand.
Dark Bishop Baculus says, "Hey, you found any dragons for me? You know where I can find a dragon?"
Yeah, and again, it's going to be Axe Spider is going to be able to stick on the board. For those that don't know, he does have protection from the core removal based stuff, but we do see both of these lists playing, not Axe Spider cards, because unfortunately, you can't just build a deck with 4 Axe Spider and get there all the time, right? You got to play these elementals. You have to play things like the Buffalong Bill that we saw in Rex's hand, or in Caleb's hand, excuse me. So there are very live hits for these Cursed Dragons, again, as we saw in Game 1 as well. Man, double Fula even. All right, well, we're going to see more protected threats from Rex's side, but then you still have to find an avenue where they can connect.
This is almost an exact inverse of what we saw in that first game, where Caleb had all of the defensive tools, but no way to close a game out. Right now, Rex has all of the protection. We've got one Axe Spider that, actually was destroyed, but then we have the second one on the table, a third one in hand, as you said, the Fulas as well. But what Rex is missing is that kind of oomph that he had in the first one. So this will help. This is actually a pretty relevant development.
So again, we just need to find a spirit that we can stick on the board is going to help. We really want to look into the Enterprise, right? Getting the protection from core thefts online and some of the other effects. Now, we do know that Caleb has a Bishop, so he does have the board breaker if he's able to find the Cursed Dragon piece to it. But Buffalong Bill, he likes to bounce things that are 5 and less. And spoiler, Axe Spider only costs 4, so that is a very live bounce target if he wants to turn that sideways, because Buffalong Bill, with his level 3 effect, does allow you to get aggressive and turns into a mini Turbo Rex, as it will, where he can now bounce something and get that Axe Spider off the board.
You know what the Buffalong Bill does not bounce, though?
What's that?
Dual Gun, Mech Lord, Derm, Dyna. So I think we might be hitting the point in the game where Caleb is just going to kind of speed through the turns, if you will. A little bit of draw go or minor developments until we can get that active. This is certainly going to kind of help with that game plan as well. But what I expect is that we're going to see a bit of a stalemate, and then Caleb will be dropping the bomb. I kind of wish Caleb had the opportunity to get like one more chip damage in. I feel like if Rex was at 2 instead of 3, the dual gun becomes that much more relevant, because then that first swing takes you from 2 to 1, and then that kind of gets rid of the ice shield issue. But at 3, it means that you've got to get 2 connections before you can really make it happen. But This is interesting. Caleb is deciding to attack with that Axe Spider, knowing that there's a Buffalong Bill there, saying, okay, I'm still willing to crash these in. I think maybe what Caleb has realized is the same thing that we were just talking about. If I can get him to 2 instead of 3, I'm going to be in a much better position for closing this out.
Yeah, and again, that Buffalong Bill is looking like a great bounce target, but you have to keep in mind that you probably want to save it for the curse even in case Buffalong Bill gets you another block. So we could, attack with the curse target next, exactly, which is then going to force, okay, my Buffalong Bill is either going to have to kind of run in front of this and you take the curse, or again, just immediately taking it from life, right? Because Buffalong Bill can block Agleveil and then has to choose, do you bounce that target so it doesn't die to the curse, or do you bounce the 0 drop just to preserve your life total? But Rex is going to fall down to 2 here, which turns on that Durm Dyna in Caleb's hand, becoming a very real threat very, very fast.
Now, since we saw no blocks here, is there a chance where we're going to load more cores onto the Buffalong Bill?
Yeah, I do like the idea of being aggressive with it.
Yeah, because this should then turn on that bounce effect when you go on offense as well. And if you are sitting on, say, suppression, where you can get the attack bounce as well as a defense bounce, then you can really wreak havoc on Caleb's side of the board.
Yeah, and exactly enough cores to take Fulla to her level 3 as well, which, when we think about this card, Ice Princess Fulla, it's not something that you're playing because, it's a good BP threshold spirit. You're just playing it because you want to protect your stuff from having its cores removed, and that's why we see the Soul Core go onto Buffalong Bill. So now Rex has found himself a board where the Bishop Curse Dragon combo actually doesn't interact with them in this case. So we're going to see where we can develop the turn where Buffalong Bill is going to get to attack, bounce the Elemental if you want to. But so here's the thing, right? Are we going to bounce the Elemental so we can immediately force an action, or are we going to bounce the Axe Spider to make Caleb have a big turn of having to replay it? Because yes, it is going to still take 3 cores again.
I was going to say, it's got to be the Axe Spider. As tempting as the Elemental might be there, and we can see it. I was about to say, we don't know what's in the hand of Caleb, and whatever you bounce, you're still going to have plenty of cores to work with. So what you want to do is, I think, set the tempo back for Caleb, right? And what I mean by tempo is the pace of the game. And having to redeploy the Axe Spider is a pretty big deal when you consider the white cost reduction, right? It's an expensive card on the one hand, but it also is helping to play some of those other white cards very cheaply.
Yeah, and again, just having some very real attacking threats here when we don't see a burst down, and this could just be some good connection damage-wise. But again, I'm not sure if we saw it in Rex's hand yet, if he has a suppression or Dream Bomb to line it up, but we could just see a swing-out turn here being really nice.
I think we have to assume that he's sitting on something. This has been a very aggressive turn, and if he were doing this without a suppression, I would be surprised. I mean, yeah, you have the Axe Spider back as well, so maybe it's Axe Spider plus Dream Bomb, but I would think that this kind of telegraphed a suppression personally.
Yeah, and you always do want to keep in mind, you want to respect a possible Dream Bomb from your opponent as well. So getting that first block with Axe Spider can be really important. And again, we did see...
Well, I was about to say, that's why you leave it there. If you're wondering why you don't swing with everything, if you're sitting on a suppression, it's because right now what you want to do is, assuming Caleb takes any sort of offense back into you, you play suppression on your Buffalong. And then if they have the Dream Bomb for the Buffalong, well, you still have your Axe Spider to block, right? So you're forcing them to kind of choose which one you want to Dream Bomb. So I think that's why you still leave that one back.
Yeah, and getting to bounce 5 or less off the suppression with Buffalong Bill can be pretty spicy in terms of really resetting the board, right? Because depending on the attack sequencing from Caleb, it then turns into you lose a threat because Buffalong Bill is just a chunky lad, as it were, and he's bouncing something else, so effectively removing 2 targets from the board off a single swing. But you know what? What's better than 1 Axe Spider is 2 Axe Spiders for the turn, but again, is a very expensive development here from Caleb's side just to get those Axe Spiders back online.
So we do see Caleb finally deploy that Ice Shield that's been in hand for a bit. Again, I want to appreciate the patience Caleb is showing. We've seen that quite a bit throughout day 2 of the Pro Tour, where players have the Ice Shield, but they don't necessarily deploy it because you may want your opponent to swing into you and ramp your cores or give you some more information when they don't put you on an Ice Shield, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it could be very tempting for new players to just, oh, I drew the Ice Shield, I'm going to throw it into my burst because that's the only card that matters in the situation. And it doesn't always line up that way. Sometimes you want to keep it open for the Dream Bombs or Star Blast draws later and things of that nature. Or again, you just want to force your opponent to make a choice on what they're. Oh, and here we do see the suppression.
Exactly the suppression onto Buffalong.
Yep, so it's going to be an 8K. When it blocks, so again, there is going to be a flash window. So if Caleb had an answer in hand, this is exactly the time that they're gonna want to play it. Oh, he does have the Dream Bomb, so now he really has to think about it. Do I force this Dream Bomb now, or am I going to lose two things?
I was going to say, I think you have to.
Well, here's the thing, right? He has to take the cores off his Axe Spiders then to do it.
Yeah, but the tempo loss. So here's the thing, right? If you don't Dream Bomb this, what's going to end up happening is you are still going to lose so much on the board when you consider what the potential attack back is. You're in a lot of danger. I know the life total says 4 of 5 there, but I believe, unless it's hiding under the overlay, that we're actually at 3 of 5 on Caleb, which is, far more relevant. Well, you know that the Ice Shield is down there as well, so you do have that as an option. And what they're instead going to do, instead of opening themselves up to a Cursed Dragon removing both Axe Spiders, we're just going to sacrifice an Axe Spider, saying, okay, I'm willing to lose one. And honestly, this is pretty smart from Caleb, because when you were able to Burning Force one of Rex's Axe Spiders earlier, it means that when you lose this one, you're really still staying even on the total Axe Spider count throughout the match.
Yep, and the most important thing here, too, is making sure you can connect and drive Rex down to 1 when we know that he has a very scary threat looming in Caleb's hand, and you no longer have the protection of the Ice Shield. So we're going to get a look here at Rex's hand to see what he has for answers. I cannot see what there's one card hiding in the back of his hand, which is the Buffalong bill that was just bounced.
The Buffalong that was bounced, and then there should be another one of the very beautiful promo Fulas, and then we have the Enterprise, and then the Dark Bishop Baculus.
This is a very scary turn. We have Rex going down to, again, 1 if that overlay is correct and there's not one hiding underneath there, that is a very scary life total for Rex. And we're going to see the Enterprise come online and act as a wall, right? It's going to have the Soul Core. So again, we're being very smart, and we're respecting one part of the, Cursed Dragon Bishop combo. And also now Enterprise is going to give us protection from the targeted removal. So we are going to have to wait and see what these attacks look like, but also understanding that Rex doesn't have a lot of options when he's only sitting at the 1 life left.
Yeah, if we're at 1 life, I feel like the Mech Lord is really just going to be setting up the lethal, because we know what's in the hand of Rex. There's no burst to save you. So what do you do when the dual gun hits the table? We might be going to a game 3 here.
I think we are going to see, unless it got discarded out of nowhere or anything. No, but it's still there. It's still looming.
No, it's still there.
So there's no core theft or anything like that played, but again, we have the depths. We could try to get more card draw that way. But we do have 1 life and 1 Nexus on the board, so it looks like the 6 is going to be an elephant play. Oh, this is really interesting. Yep, we see. Yeah, we're just trying to line up protection. So Caleb respecting that Rex could very well have a threat, and then it's kind of a 2 all-in play while he's staring down a triple spirit, cannot be interacted with wall. But at the same time, you have to wonder what Rex has in their hand if they're not able to kind of check that Ice Shield on your side. So again, this is the luxury of having that caster vision on our side, getting to see both players' hands.
Pretty sure I just saw Rex now pick up a suppression again, so we're still going to know the full hand layout of Rex going into this and further. Yep, there is the suppression. So again, we know that Caleb technically has an open lane to victory. It's just whether or not Caleb wants to go all in. A lot of times when I'm covering card games, I like to say this is the if you got it, you got it moment. And sometimes you just got to throw caution to the wind. It's just very hard to do that when you don't have all the information that we do, obviously, but also when there's so much on the line.
Yes, that's what I mentioned.
For, $25,000 and being the first Battle Spirit Saga Pro Tour champion. When you consider that, because I know at home it's easy to say well, of course I would have just played it and said, if you got it, you got it. But really, when all of that's on the line, Instead, we're going to see the Ice Shield here.
And I got to call it out, a really beautiful interaction that we did see out of the white control decks all the way back to the launch event is Buffalong Bill and Enterprise. Because Buffalong Bill at his level 3 is going to turn on those when blocking effects, Buffalong Bill plus Enterprise turns Enterprise into a double attacker that has armor from, well, pretty much everything, it turns out, other than yellow, of course. But it is going to be enough to start to threaten those absolute ice shields once you start getting in those double attackers. And if you really want to, Enterprise is just swing once, attack with it, and then it restands itself so you can still save it as a blocker.
All right, so I'm very curious what's going to happen next, because if Caleb does not have another absolute ice shield, then what is the harm in not doing the if you got it, you got it? Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's got to be now, right? If you don't have the answer, then you have to say, all right, well, what's my path to victory? It's certainly not playing defensive right now, so what do you got?
Yeah, knowing that your opponent has the Buffalong Bill to bounce one, it has a double attacking Enterprise, which is very difficult to deal with if you don't have the suppression.
All right, here we go.
Yep, 2 unblockables.
2 unblockables, and we know we are going to
Oh, man.
game 3, baby.
You love to see it. Everything coming down, and that might have been a little prophetic, as we talked about. We wanted to see you, like, who doesn't want to see a game 3, right? Obviously, if you're up a game, maybe that's where it's want, but it's so much more exciting. Everything comes down. Game 3, 1 apiece. The title, the money, the prestige, everything is leading up to this one game of the purple and white Axe Spider mirror. And I gotta say, you love to see it, because we got to see the strength of Durham Dyna, and we got to see an elk coming down early, and we really get to see the value in the Nexus and the Elementals. And it really has been the weekend for these zero drops to shine, and shine they have time and time again.
Listen, I just want to say that this has been a fantastic finals. And the real star for me is, of course, the double D, the Durham Dyna. Game 1 was a victory on the back of Rex getting so much value out of it, and game 2 as well, now being sealed up by Caleb. So the dual gun Mech Lord, double D, as I like to now call him officially, getting 2 wins, 1 for each player. Will we see it again? Will these players kind of change it up for game 3? I don't think that you want to deviate too much from your game plan.
I think it's pretty set. We're going to see these players try to establish, again, that early game. You want to see your Nexus, you want to see your zero cost, but then really in that mid to late game, it's either going to be try to get that early elk established that's going to dodge the core thefts, or just that Durham Dyna, as we saw, like in the course of the game, try to find that chip damage where you can. And then in that exact moment, as we just saw, Durham Dyna being that one unblockable damage really gets through. And this is something that we've seen, again, all through set 1 meta, going all the way back to the launch event with the Rex decks. It turned out Durham Dyna was the MVP then as well. The Rex decks came online early, they got that chip damage, and then the white control decks would usually just stabilize until you found that Durham Dyna to get that last point of damage. Because at least in the red decks, you have the Volcanic Canyons, right? So you can cycle for it. And in this deck, it's just the Netherworld Depths and the Elementals that are really helping fuel the game plan for these kind of late game finishers.
Well, we are potentially seeing Rex make a few changes here, which I find to be interesting, because when I'm looking at the sideboard, what I'm seeing are some of those zero cost elementals, this Burning Force. Like, there's no way these are coming out, right?
I don't think you would take out the zeros. All right, well, let me go. I got to go back into the deck list.
That's what I was about to ask you. You as the expert, what would you sacrifice, 2 elementals for when you're looking at this sideboard?
Oh, it might have been the Buffalong Bills. So again, it's the Buffalong Bills and the Durham Dynas. We actually did see Buffalong Bill being a very key threat in this last game. Like, the suppression play commanded that Dream Bomb, where if Caleb didn't have the Dream Bomb right on time, the Buffalong Bill would have swung the matchup in just such a significant way by getting that block and the bounce off the suppression. And we definitely do want to bring in the other 2 Durham Dyna as well. So yeah, very interesting, because those zero costs, again, have been pretty important. You want to get in that early chip damage. You want to have the card draw off of them. So to see some of those come out, I'd really be curious to see what the full decision tree looks like.
One of the Burning Forces going back in, which I'm a fan of, not only for the Nexuses, but we did actually see an Axe Spider be eaten by one. And I think what's happening is that Rex is saying, all right, I had my own axe spider eaten from a burning force, but I remember back to game 1 when I saw Caleb also play an axe spider with 1 core, right? Maybe I can give myself the opportunity, even if this doesn't kill a Nexus, to find that same kind of value. But of course I say that, and now it looks like it got snuck back in at the last second.
I love this back and forth.
A lot of indecision. We do know we're down to 6, at least on the side of Rex, for the elementals. But yeah, I think that was the thought process, right? Well, I just saw the value of this potentially, but do I want to run 51 and ruin my inconsistency? But also, would I really like to, get some payback, because I did see game 1, Caleb threw caution to the wind and said, hey, here's an axe spider with just 1 core. So, what do you do?
I will say I really like the opportunity here that we're getting to see, because every round up until this moment, right, we've had that timer set, and when we saw this match on camera, it was a lot of, well, I guess we're going to go to game 2 or game 3, and then we're just going to shuffle at our whole sideboard, right? You don't have to worry about the time rule in this case, so you do get to say, hey, I want to come into this game 3 where everything all comes down to this moment. What is the exact 50 card, or again, 51, 52, whatever those exact numbers look like? What is the exact list that I want? I want to give myself the best game possible. What does that look like? And in this case, Rex did decide that we're going to cut 2 elementals, again, probably for the Durham Dyna, the Buffalo Bills, out of the sideboard. There's a lot of things that you want to bring in out of the sideboards in this matchup, but you also don't want to ruin your consistency. So looks like we are going to be getting started for game 3, the final game of Battle Spirits Saga Pro Tour New Jersey.
We are ready to go. All right. I was about to say, I don't know if we are doing the mulligan thing or not. We had some players looking at hands, but after the shuffling around, they are choosing to stick with them.
I was waiting for the draw go. That's why I was like, maybe they didn't have the 0 drops after we just caught a couple, and no Nexus as well. So it's just like, all right, here we go. Let's start off slow.
We start with one of your favorites.
Yeah, I love Aglavale, again, having that curse as well as the card draw. This is another one of those things. We talk about the elementals, we talk about the Netherworld Depths, and Aglavale just being another key card that we can deploy early, gives us a cycling if we need to. And then again, in some matchups, that curse can matter a lot.
Well, and outside of that, when we talk about the importance of getting those Netherworld Depths down early, right? This is another way besides the elementals where you can potentially reduce the cost.
All right.
Hey, are we about to see another Burning Force?
Well, here again, we now know that we at least have the 4 cores and not a red reduction for it. So if we do want to command the Burning Force here,
I would trade that for an Axe Spider all day, though, Kozmic.
It would depend on what's in the rest of my hand, but I would very, very much consider it. It's tempting. It is very tempting. Because keep in mind, you can also push a damage here with the Axe Spider only having the 1 core on him. He doesn't have his own protection, so there is an aggressive line here. If you want to get the event, all right, Axe Spider counter 1. We do want to make sure that we can.
Is that a Duke? No, just an Axe Spider. Okay.
Yeah, just triple checking. Like, wait, the level 1 is just the BP, right? Yes, that is correct. You have to have the 3 cores on the Axe Spider to make sure it's safe from this curse attack. Which again, then yes, Rex can go back. Maybe I attack with the Axe Spider, get our life at parity again, but. We got to, okay, we are just going to go into the Netherworld Depths in this case, right? So you didn't have the extra core to keep Rex at, or to put Rex level 2. So keep the Elemental in play, get yourself another chump blocker and get this turn 2 Depths online.
All right, now, Caleb, I do believe, did technically draw First Blood. I know right now the overlay says still 5 out of 5, but I believe right there, unless it's being covered by the overlay, there should be 4 health. We did see the Aglavale attack, and there were no responses. So technically it should be 4 to 5, but I was wondering if Rex was going to potentially try to take advantage of the open lane there, decides to pass instead. We're just going to leave the cores, but this would be all of the times. Like, imagine the 3000 IQ play if you set up Rocket City to say, I don't have the Burning Force, and now you do. And I think I see one in hand. Is that
I see something red in the back corner.
Because if that's a Burning Force, this would be such a blowout.
Well, you have to imagine, too, that Netherworld Depths we've seen time and time again, that is a key piece. So this is, I would say, a very hard decision for Caleb to make, right? Unless Depths in hand, and then you at least get the board back to parity.
Well, you have the Rocket City to at least slow it down halfway, though.
But it's only half is the problem.
All right, well, I don't think we're going to see what I would want to do instead.
Hey, we got two Axe Spiders to die to a Burning Force this weekend.
I know, but I wanted to see it. I wanted to see, blow out another one and the Elemental and then swing in. However, that would open yourself up to quite the crackback. I think that's honestly the real consideration, right? Is when you do a play like that, you have no defenses, and whatever Rex plays, and they'll have a lot of cards at that point, right? Both because of the Netherworld, but also the Elemental. That would be a bit of a problem. So instead, we're just going to load up our cores on the side of Rex, and then I think pass. Yeah, we're just going to put some cores under Netherworld Depths, because why not?
Yep, just make sure that we know that they're available to us. Put them on there. Again, the Axe Spider is not going to be able to protect it because it is not a white Nexus, but it is still just a way to... I don't know, sometimes it's a visual reminder. It's not at level 2 because you need 3 cores from Depths, and also there's nothing that we want to, give that pseudo curse to, but it could also be a reminder for the next turn, right? We are now looking at an elemental that could have that pseudo curse with Netherworld Depths in play and turning that 0-cost elemental quickly into an attacker.
I think now we're going to see the force on the side of the Depths. If I had to guess a play based on the hand that we were just seeing shuffled from Caleb, when you don't have a lot of good developments, the only other option would be maybe you want to just slam down your own Axe Spider to wall up, but I think when you can get rid of that Netherworld and you've given them no value from it, it would make an awful lot of sense. But again, maybe you just want to keep the 2 cores on the Rocket City, but much like with an Axe Spider, that's very limiting. Yeah, I would be totally okay with this.
Yep, definitely think we just have to fire it off of this. Looking at the rest of his hand again, I think we did see the Derm Dyna, the fancy SPR version. Love to see it. But you want to make sure that your opponent can't completely run away with the match just off that Netherworld Depths. Now, again, we might see another one. All right.
Game 1 decided by the Mech Lord. Game 2 decided by the Mech Lord. Game 3, both players potentially with a Mech Lord. Is there any way besides that kind of an ending that we can end the Pro Tour? I think not.
I mean, there's always the outside chance of an elk, but I think we're going to see a repeat like we did in the last 2 games, where you find some windows where you can get in some chip damage off the elementals, off Axe Spider coming across, being defensive with the suppression play, and then Derm Dyna getting in that final piece of damage that you're looking for. And both players have it, but keep in mind, Caleb does have 2 white reductions on... Okay, well, now they're at 2 white reductions apiece. Derm Dyna is very expensive. It does take a little bit of time to develop your board and make sure you have enough cores on it, and then also play the game of, does my opponent have Core Theft? Does my opponent have a Dream Bomb? If they Dream Bomb, what else do I have to develop on the next turn? So it's not always the windmill slam that we might like it to be, unless they're at
no.
You have to have it, you have it, right? But
I honestly think we're not anywhere near either player playing them yet, but we're going to get there. I think right now, what Caleb wants is to get his own Axe Spider developed where he can then wall up and buy some time, because that's the real difference maker right now. I also think that Caleb wants to get the cores ramped up a little bit, which is why that damage was taken there.
Yeah, I really love the respects, too, from Rex's side. Just keep being very mindful of the follow-up, being very mindful of what can protect.
Wow. That's also a pretty solid play.
Turns out Buffalo Bill was an all-star of the previous match and just being a bounce house, as it were. And now it looks like it's Caleb's turn with the special Pro ZD collab card, as it were. Him riding a bull of Buffalo Bill. Beautiful, gorgeous full art card, by the way. I'm really happy that we got a full art version of that, which would be a starter deck exclusive card otherwise. Love me some shiny foils.
Listen, I'm a big fan of the elk. So I would be willing to ride an elk if they want to use that inspiration for a promo card. Bandai, if you're listening, I'm okay with that. Or I also like a lot of the green cards that are coming in set too. So you know how to get a hold of me.
Yeah. Any one of those, right, would be a good pick. But yeah, I think, as we saw with the previous game, just being so strong off the bounce effect of Buffalo Bill and really having to respect those suppressions, we do have an opportunity for Caleb to chip away at Rex's board. Now, again, we probably do need to wait a turn. We want to make sure we can get the cores on Buffalo Bill. We want to make sure we can set up a magic behind it if needed, be it suppression, be it Dream Bomb, to really clean up the board. But unless we can see, a very late game play, we're not anywhere near it, as you mentioned, but the other late game threats we have besides Derm Dyna is Enterprise. And Enterprise did come down last game, and having that pro-white protection for your entire field could be very, very important.
I think both players really just want to speed through these next few turns because they need more cores to play things.
Yep.
But they also don't want to miss anything, right? They want to be meticulous and they don't want to make any sort of play mistakes. So that's why we're kind of seeing this slower pace. We know that neither one of them really has an edge with the current game state as far as the board goes, but you don't want to miss any sort of like windows of opportunity. So while these greedy decks do want to get to a point where they have a bunch more cores and several more resources as well, we are going to see this kind of methodical count through. I think right now Rex is counting cores that can possibly be shifted around. So the question is, what is it that Rex wants to play where he's considering pulling some of those cores?
Yeah, we have to get a look at the hand to see what else is being developed on both player sides. But you're absolutely right. We are tied at 4 life apiece. We have some the Axe Biter on the side of Rex, but we have the Buffalong Bill who is going to remove some pieces. So we have to be mindful of what threats can we really develop that isn't going to just be bounced away from the Buffalong Bill and kind of resetting our tempo.
All right, and with those cores being placed, I think we might ultimately just see a pass. I think whatever math Rex was doing wasn't enough. Again, we're at that weird spot where you just want like 1 or 2 more cores before you can really start to ramp things up, but we are a ways away from that. Yeah, so much counting. So we know the Mech Lord is there, but I didn't know if there was something else. I thought I saw a glimpse of what may have been a Curse King.
Yeah, I just saw that Durham Dyna again in front, and I think that's what we were counting out, that yes, you have the 2 reduction. You could line it up early if but then you're looking at, does it get bounced? Do I get to reset my whole turn?
Caleb's got a number of options there. Obviously, the Mech Lord of his own, but I also saw the Enterprise as well as an Axe Biter. So with the Buffalong Bill and the Axe Biter, Caleb can also continue to slow down the pace of this game if he would like. With the 5 cores there, I mean, that would be the 2 with the reduction and then the 3 cores just to load it up.
Yeah, that Rocket City has just been kind of holding those cores for a little bit, but we do have a number of options from Caleb's side. As you mentioned, there's just a full grip of cards that can really lead into a couple different decision trees based on what you think is going to be your clear path to answer in the following turns. And again, we've seen so many times that, with both players being at 4 life, we talked about how important it is to get that chip damage.
So instead, what we are going to do is deploy the mothership, this huge Enterprise.
Yep, so it is going to take a lot of cores to get on the board. We're going to take them off the Rocket City to give ourselves just a small 9K double blocker. No big deal. But what's really important is this is now lining up an opportunity for Caleb to say, like, look, you have 1 turn to interact with my board, or I'm going to put 4 cores in this Enterprise and make sure that I'm protected from all white and purple interactions. So that Buffalong Bill is getting very scary very quickly. It's not, typically what we'd call a game ender or finisher by any means, but it is a tempo setter.
But as you had properly pointed out last game, what it also does when it's paired with the Enterprise is it allows the double attacking Enterprise as well, because when you put 4 cores on the Buffalong Bill, then you open up all of your when blocking effects while attacking, and the Enterprise has a when blocking for the first time each turn you refresh it, so it can then swing and then trigger that refresh itself and then swing again. So absolutely, this Buffalong Bill would be a potential finisher with this board state.
Absolutely. And again, 12K, we think about the Axe Biter decks, right? Really wanting to use either Dream Bombs to reset cards or the suppression just to lock down a turn. But a 12K double attacker, by itself is going to command an answer because that 1 card getting 2 attacks, we talked about, right? There's the multi-attack angle, there's the go wide angle, and there's the unblockable angle. It's kind of like your 3 spots that you have in how you want to attack into this deck. And it turns out, sometimes you just have the Enterprise, and we know that is not the only Enterprise in Caleb's deck either.
There we go. I was about to say, we're going to see those cores go on the Buffalong, because the other nice thing is that means Buffalong Bill, when he attacks, will bounce there as well. So if you happen to be sitting on something like a suppression, then you can be very aggressive here while also slamming that suppression down on defense. We might finally see the start of the action again. We've been in a bit of a stalemate, and rightfully so, while both players are trying to get to the cores they wanted to be able to play things. It is very interesting to me. Neither one at the moment has any bursts deployed, and so we are kicking things off. As I said, that Buffalong Bill on offense will be able to bounce that Axe Biter. And what are we going to do As a follow-up on the side of Rex, it looks like we're going to block with the Amethystis, get some of that cycling in.
Yeah, and again, Bill is threatening an 8K body on this side. So with the Axe Spider going back to hand and shutting off the suppression line, I mean, you could suppress the Fula, which is at a 5K currently, which would be 8 to 8. But you know, Caleb now have an opportunity to swing through.
So we did just see a damage go through because the Enterprise swung and then was refreshed again because of the Buffalong Bill. Caleb now getting a bit of information, because you would have thought, all right, if there's a Dream Bomb, maybe that's where it's at or whatever. Might now be considering more attacks, right? I kind of speculated, or we had assumed that maybe there is a suppression in hand, but even if that's not the case, if you kind of get this open window of opportunity,
yeah, you definitely have to take it. Right, we've seen time and time again how important even those couple of turns we only get 1 or 2 damage in really lines up those Derm Dyna later, and Enterprise is rightfully protecting the board. So I like this too with Agilvale. You know, hey, I have Curse. Go ahead and take me out if you want, but I'm going to get a card draw off of it, and that's really what both players are lacking from this side, is not having the draw engines online.
That was a very quick trash check on the side of Caleb, looking at Rex's side, because not a lot's been played.
Yeah,
again, we had a little bit of exchanges in the early game, and then we have walled up, creating that kind of stalemate moment. But this combination of the Enterprise with Buffalong Bill has really widened things in terms of the playing field.
Yep, and Rex going down to 2. So we do see a huge shift in the life totals. Caleb still at that very healthy 4. He has a double blocking Enterprise on his side. And then Rex said, you know what, I'm going to get some more cores. I'm going to go down to 2. And I have to figure out, what am I going to do to redeploy my board here? Oh, are we going to just send the Enterprise to try to check for that Derm Dyna? We know the players are holding the Derm Dyna still.
I mean, yes, but I mean, this is one of those situations where, again, you have been given a free reign, and if you put your opponent on not having any good way to punish you, the only thing you're worried about would be a Dream Bomb if you're on your own suppression, right? So we could attack here and then basically say, like, you have to have a wide board and a Dream Bomb if you want to get any good counterattack in. And with 4 health, like, that's still a fair amount to work with, right? You're not, I don't think, worried about getting outright killed in 1 turn.
Man, what a great opportunity here, because right, we know
here's the other thing, right? Caleb did just win this last game with the "if you got it, you got it" moment. So maybe now it's kind of setting. Well, you know, maybe I could do it again.
Yep, and slowly that mindset it is just you know, we're gonna run it out there and see what happens, because you know, Enterprise, it's so hard to say. I think I would have liked the attack there, just because we know the Derm Dyna is in hand. We know that we can play it next turn and keep the cores up on the Enterprise to protect it. That the opportunity for interaction is very, very little for what Rex can ultimately do if you're able to push them down to 1. Now, instead, with being at 2 life, we can still do an Ice Shield from hand if we need to. But no, we are going to see the Bishop come online and strip out the cores. And this is the other mindset, too, of why you want to get in that chip damage, because now you're going to end up losing the board and ramping your opponent to 3 cores as well. Yeah, if you could have gotten... Now, there's nothing to say that there wouldn't have been a block there, right? Obviously, the Fulu is still there, so we don't know for sure that they would have went to 1, but when your opponent kind of gives you that opening, I would have liked to have seen Caleb swing, because you're correct. Being at 1 is a very big deal when you're sitting on that Derm Dyna. Yep, and now we just have a big beefy Curse Dragon and what most likely is an absolute shield, Ice Shield coming down. Finally,
the burst gets deployed. Caleb got a lot of damage in. I mean, that worked out very well, but with this reset, how much damage will Caleb ultimately take back while they are trying to redeploy? They do have a lot of options in their hand. The hands here, with that back and forth of a draw go for quite a bit, even without Netherworld, has allowed both players to have a lot of options.
Yeah, so I think we saw an Axe Spider or 2 there on Caleb's side, so just redeploying and trying to
We've had that Axe Spider since, I think, the opening hand. It's just not really had the opportunity to come down.
I thought I saw a second one, maybe not, because I think you can windmill slam out the other one. Oh no, here is the Derm Dyna now. Very interesting. Maybe because your opponent had just used one of their key pieces of interaction against it. Yeah. Now this Derm Dyna might just be live.
Well, I mean, it is live, but it's also saying, like, okay, what do you have as that burst? Because I'm going to be able to give both of these unblockable.
Yep, absolutely. So for those at home, Derm Dyna is going to swing activate its ability by paying the Soul Core. It's going to make the white spirits on your board unblockable for how many Nexus either player has. So in this case, with the 2 Rocket City on Caleb's side, both the Axe Spider and the Derm Dyna will be unblockable. And notably, Rex does not have a lot of cores to work with, so it's got to be either just the YOLO flip over the Ice Shield, or it might have been a bluff. And again, we see Caleb with if you got it, you got it.
And I think that's why this went down, is because even if that is an Ice Shield, you lose the Dragon in order to play it, because you won't be able to use
because the Fool is gone.
Because
yes,
the Fool is gone. So this has to be an Ice Shield, and you lose your Dragon as a result. Like, I actually think this was a very heads-up smart play from Caleb to recognize this. So here is the Ice Shield.
Yep, you were exactly right. The core is going to go back. And he does have the opportunity to still block with the Curse Dragon, so the Axe Spider is just going to get walled out. But you have to realize that it was unblockable because of Derm Dyna, so you can't block with it.
Right, I was going to say.
Do we go back down to 1? Do you have, he's counting out his cores for the next turn? I think you just have to sacrifice it. The Derm Dyna stonks are very real this weekend, it turns out.
Well, when you come into a meta where you expect a lot of Axe Spider, which is essentially a near immortal blocker, what do? You design decks that are able to go around that. And one of the best ways in the Set 1 meta is the dual gun Mech Lord Derm Dyna.
So again, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page while we're going through this, there is a Ice Shield burst on the stack. And right now, Rex is deciding if he wants to pay the cost, because that last Axe Spider is unblockable. So we see Rex going through their discard, seeing how many cores are available on their next turn, because this is a huge deciding moment to see how much this Curse Dragon is going to matter, where some, maybe just keeping the attacker on board is going to be what matters most. But I have to imagine we have to see an answer from Rex one way or another against that Derm Dyna. And I'm not sure that we saw one is in his hand right now, but you could still top deck an answer.
All right, so as we shuffle through, we've got the Burning Force, the own, Derm Dyna. There's an Axe Spider there. I'm not really seeing a direct answer. So
yeah, what great execution by Caleb, as you were mentioning, to put themselves in this position and having that Derm Dyna just, again, check your, Rex had a big, powerful play, right? The Curse Dragon Bishop combo got to clear up the board. You had to do it. You had to command an answer to the Enterprise in Buffalong Bill. And Caleb just had a beautiful, beautiful follow-up to it with this Derm Dyna and Axe Spider turn.
Well, and again, with the recognition of, hey, there's no white cards on the board. So with no reduction, if I do this, yes, that's likely an Ice Shield, but it will require the Curse Dragon to go away, and that is what will happen. So I think it's the right call by Rex, and I understand him going through everything to make sure he's not missing something, because you want to keep things on the board, obviously, but what a play by Caleb.
Yeah, huge draw. It was purple, so that could be half of an answer. Oh, it's an elemental off the top for the purple answer, or for purple card that we were, could have been a core theft. But we're going to see what we can try to develop here. And again, keep in mind, this last game, we did see a window where Caleb had the opportunity to just slam through that Derm Dyna. We had the pro caster vision, as it were, to know exactly what's in both players' hands. But of course, they don't know that. So you want to try to still play out this match as if you have some other type of answer to get the game into a board state where this Derm Dyna isn't just going to run away with it. Hopefully.
What I'm also looking at here, so you got the Elemental, right? We might see that slammed down and then attacking just to see if we can kill it into the Axe Spider, get them to block, because we know you have to draw something like a Dream Bomb to survive, or even, you won't be able to play it as a burst, but you want to draw like another Ice Shield so that you take one and then stop the other one. You have to find something. We're still going to obviously deploy other things. We want to show that, we have a board, get ourselves in a position to rebound, but ultimately we know we have to dig. There's nothing in the hand. So I would not be surprised if we don't end up seeing an Elemental. I also think...
Are we going to just see it go wide, right? So Caleb doesn't have a burst set.
I was just going to say, we also might just see a go wide, because if you know that you are... Yeah, and here's the 3, so that you can attack and also potentially draw. Oh, I was hoping that we were going to see the continuation, but ultimately, I think this is what I expected. You're going to deploy as much as you can so that if you do find your out, you're in a position to win, right? You play to your outs, but also we need to play the Elemental and we need to cycle with it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is going to end up, because again, Caleb still wants to be at that 4 life we've talked about and seen so many times that every chip damage matters that you can get in here, because then it makes your own cards live. But, you know, Caleb might correctly identify that that elemental is just trying to threaten a draw where it can, where you say, nope, you get to have that. I will take that 1 point of damage and try to block out some other stuff instead. Yeah, this is a very interesting board state that Rex is able to set back up again, because these Rex is very high on these Axe Spiders, which are known for being the defensive play. When you're getting aggressive, you could still have that suppression play available. You know, yes, there is the Mech Lord, there is a Derm Dyna on the board, which is going to make them unblockable in most cases, but you know, that might be something that can either get missed or overlooked when you're trying to think about these plays and how to develop the board.
I think Rex might be feigning that he has a Dream Bomb setup of some kind, where he's just going to go wide and then, you know, try to push through that last bit of damage, right?
Oh, this is huge, because, you know, you don't want to go down to 1 life, and Caleb now has to very much consider, you know, do I go to 1 and pressure myself to just die to a Derm Dyna, right? I think we might want to stop the bleed on 3, but oh wait, no, it down to 1.
I was going to say, I think that if you were going to prevent yourself from going down to 1, you would have blocked one of the Axe Spiders.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to block the Elemental and allow them to dig. So with this, I think you're just going down to 1 and saying, I've got you next turn if you don't have an answer.
Yeah, and
Caleb won game 2 on the if you got it, you got it. Why not run it back?
Yeah, and Battle Spirit Saga is a great game that your life is literally a resource, as we talk about in many other card games, that, you know, going down to that 1 is not 0. So that's extra cores you got to play with, and then also recognizing, you know, as we quickly identified, like, hey, we do not want to let that elemental draw, and we're okay, well, we just have the Enterprise. We're going to be able to set up the board. We're going to be able to get protection from all relevant things in this match now, and have, well, I guess more than enough cores, even, because the Soul Core has to go back on Derm Dyna, but now we have protection and 2 unblockable things from Caleb's side of the board.
And no burst that was played on the side of Rex. That's another key piece of information for Caleb. So normally when you're swinging with the Mech Lord, you say, like, hey, this is an Ice Shield check, but we know there's not even one deployed there. So the swing with these as well will allow Caleb to just say, hey, these 2 are unblockable.
I do appreciate the elemental here as well. Just try to set up if you have a extra blocker as one. Again, Caleb at 1, Rex at 2, but this Derm Dyna is still threatening 2 unblockable spirits if you pay the Soul Core.
So, and Soul Core paid.
Then there's the handshake.
Caleb
Let's go.
Albert is your winner of Battle Spirit Saga Pro Tour New Jersey, falling early in game 1 of the finals, but then bringing it back. And I gotta say, Dual Gun Mech Lord Derm Dyna is your true MVP of this event.
Absolutely.
Just closing games out left and right. In what a way to end it with the finals, right? All 3 games of the finals decided by that card in a meta that it looks like it's going to be defined by Axe Spider, but as a result, it's really defined by the cards that go around him.
Yep, and this is something we've seen, again, going all the way back to the launch event. A lot of these cards that we've seen out of the purple-white deck are something that we've seen from White Control time and time again, and it's always been about, how do I stall out? How do I get to my Derm Dyna or Elk to get those points of damage? White, as a, you know, the Realm of Frost, is all about freezing the battlefield until you can find those late-game threats, and that is exactly what happened here this weekend for Pro Tour New Jersey, to get the purple-white Axe Spider to the finals and ultimately be the winner.
Man, I wonder what that feels like, to know that you're the first Pro Tour winner and $25,000 richer.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to. I got to get all the details, but if I'm not mistaken, Caleb is from our hometown and right around the corner. So
on Michigan,
that is what my friend Vision is saying back home. So I'll have to double check. But
wow.
I heard that he is in our area, so we will. Maybe we'll get them on the channel in the future, or get a chance to. We, of course, have been doing the Champion Corner interviews on our channel, and making sure that we're getting a highlight for everyone that wins a Grand Open around the world. And, of course, we want to celebrate the Pro Tour winner as well. So definitely going to try to set up a player interview as well, and kind of, hear their thoughts about, why they bring Axe Spider to the tournament, how are they feeling about the match. And obviously there's a great conversation, I'm sure, happening at the table right now. But very excited to see that we do finally have a Pro Tour champion.
Yeah, I'm sure they're just kind of talking through what we've been saying, which is some of those if you got it moments were really the highlight of that finals, because it came down to a moment in game 2 where things really turned around for Caleb, where Rex presented a scenario and Caleb had no outs. He said, okay, well, I have to go for it. And it just turned out that we knew Rex didn't have the answer. Caleb forces a game 3. And then we get to a very similar situation where Caleb goes all the way down to 1, as you said, using your life as a resource, and then gets the win with the dual gun Mech Lord Derm Dyna, the double D. So congratulations to Caleb once again. It's a fantastic finish. I just absolutely adore everything that we got to see in that finals.
Absolutely. And I got to give one special shout out to the Buffalo Bill Enterprise, like the callback all the way to the launch events and seeing this combo come online, because it did command a very strong follow-up with that Curse Dragon, with that Bishop, just to clear the board. And that was exactly what we needed to see the tempo swing for that matchup as we did.
Yeah, in many ways, when you think about it, that combo forcing the Bishop into the Infernal Curse King Dragon is what allowed the dual gun Mech Lord to flourish, because if you would have played it beforehand, it would have been potentially answered by that same combo, right? So really setting up something that looked so scary that you had to use kind of your best board clear is what paved the way for that Mech Lord.
Absolutely.
I love it.
What a great series of games that we got to enjoy here all weekend long. So I think we are going to go to a short break before we do the proper send-off for the weekend, just to make sure that we have everything set at the tables, get a recap of everything that happened, and we'll do a proper send-off here shortly. Perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I am Kozmic, and now I'm joined by our newly crowned Pro Tour champion, Caleb. And I got to give a special shout out really quick, because I have to do it for those that know we're from Michigan. And you're right around the corner for me, it turns out. So shout out to AFK Games in Holt, Michigan. We were just there on the road tour. So this has got to hype up your locals again. So tell me how you're feeling. You brought Purple White Axe Spider. You're probably going through a lot, but what's the first thing that comes to your mind about how excited you are to come to win this event, and kind of what are your next thoughts on Battle Spirits? Where do you go from here on Set 2 meta?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I brought, basically my homebrew, essentially. I guess it was hidden, but
yeah.
I built it, and then it just got exploded, and everything was just crazy about the deck, and I didn't even know. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to say, back home, we are a very small, I know with AFK Games, it's a small dedicated locals, 4 or so players, loot card shop. I'm about 1 hour east of you. Same thing. We have about 4 players. We had another one from my locals here that was also here in the Pro Tour, but you were able to battle it out. So, we have some upcoming events, but do you know where you're going to be heading to next, or where your next Battle Spirits Saga Grand Open might be? You have your world invites, but are you going to make it to any of the other events?
Definitely going to Worlds, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You got to go to that one, huh? Yeah, I'll probably be going to the Pittsburgh one.
Yep.
I think there's Pittsburgh, and then maybe Tulsa.
Yeah, so for those at home, we do have our tickets up for the Tulsa event and Pittsburgh. I will be playing for sure in Pittsburgh myself, hopefully in Tulsa, but so make sure you sign up, because that's Set 2. We're very excited. Again, we talked about all this weekend. We've had a long time to get to this road. I'm not sure if you joined us for the launch events, but 6 months of this set going all the way back. The full set was previewed on February 1st, and we've been going all the way through. So I got to ask for everyone, because they're going to be at home. You are the Pro Tour champion, but what do you think that you're going to start with in Set 2? Have you had time to think about it, or are you just too busy, crushing this event and getting to win the Pro Tour?
I've just been just head focused on this. When I get back, I'll probably take a couple days off, and then, I'll start looking at the new cards and, start, brewing up some stuff, and, but I definitely have to try green. I mean, that just, that looks fun. It looks good, strong, so.
Anything in particular? Are you more of the green-white tokens that maybe come out of it? Are you a fan of the Blade Beast, or maybe the Swift mechanic that's followed by the Prey Birds?
Yeah, I think I like the new mechanic, the Swift, because you can bluff. I love bluffing, and the whole aspect of that, it sounds super good.
Awesome. So let's talk about the last thing that we want to cover. We've played the Purple White Axe Spider. We got to see your camera, or your last match on camera. But tell us through the weekend, obviously Axe Spider being very strong, very defensive, heavy. But what was kind of your MVPs for this weekend? We talked about on camera, but the Elementals being a huge pickup for the Axe Spider deck. You get to draw, get to cycle. But was there any card in particular that you felt really shined through in this matchup?
I just built the deck to be super consistent. So it's just the obvious answers, which is Elephant, Axe Spider himself, and then Depths. I feel like Depths and Axe Spider just is what makes the deck, in my opinion, because that's just giving you so much card advantage, just from blocking.
Yeah,
So.
and we have seen, in that match, and of course all this weekend, Netherworld Depths just being a very strong card, getting you to draw a ton of cards, which, anytime that something it gets exhausted, combos very well with green. Again, another set 2 lead in, but we did get to see there at the end with the Buffalong Bill and Enterprise, being a key combo. How much has that come up for you this weekend? Do you think that's a combo that we might still see as white control evolves into set 2 meta, or is there other pieces you think that might take the spotlight away from them?
No, I think it'll be good because I think that there's like that new suppression. Don't know the name of it.
Infinity Shield, I believe the name. Yep, mechas can block while exhausted.
Yeah,
with
so
it.
you're probably gonna do more mecha stuff, or what? Is it Machine Beast too? Can it
just mecha, if I'm not mistaken. So keep me honest at home, but I'm pretty sure it's just mecha because I know everyone wants to combo it with Axe Spider.
Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, okay. So you might just go more mecha focus, maybe. Yeah.
I was really happy. We did see the Aegis come online, the new SPR that is Machine Beast focused. So if you really want to use the Nomengard City from set 1, we do have the Mecha Tribal that's come online. We have a lot of tokens built together. And I think the thing that I'm most excited for with set 2 is we've finally seen a lot of the purple decks use a lot of, again this weekend, the Cursed Dragon Bishop combo. But now we finally get to see these decks separate, and especially with white control as well. Enterprise, Buffalong Bill, Durham Dino, we've seen so much of this all in set 1 that getting a deeper card pool is going to truly be amazing thing to add to the game. So I want to give you a proper shout out. I'm sorry I stole the thunder because you're right down the road for me for AFK Games Holt in Michigan. But any final thoughts or feelings you have, or just you want to say hi, mom and dad back home, or anything like that before we kick off the stream for today?
I would just like to kind of shout out a couple people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to shout out my test play partners, Matt Clark, and then also Kai. So them two, they helped me a lot, for playtesting in this pro tour. And I also want to thank my girlfriend as well, because I had a funny story. When I was at Ohio, I was 1-2. I was like, let's just go. I just want to go.
Yep.
And then she's like, no, we drove all the way down here. You're playing it till the end.
Oh, I love to hear the supportive story. And of course, probably haven't had a breather yet to inform her, but I think you have a very happy phone call.
Oh, she's here.
Even better. Then you got to see it live. You cannot ask for more. But any other shout outs or anything like that?
Then obviously, my mom, dad, my brother, saw that, of course.
Perfect, man. I know you want to get out of here. You want to go celebrate. Appreciate you getting to come on here for a little bit. Of course, I'll be connecting with you after this, get you a proper shot of the channel, all that stuff. But for anyone else back at home, thank you so much for joining us in New Jersey for the Pro Tour, the first Pro Tour this year for Battle Spirit Saga. I hope you can join us both again in Tulsa, if you're in the United States, right? For Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Monroeville, Pennsylvania coming up, and of course all the other wonderful grand opens that we're going to have around the world leading up to Pro Tour Europe and then Pro Tour North America back home, all before, as Caleb's going to join us at Worlds at the end of this competitive season full of fun. So with that, my friends, as I always like to say, stay safe, stay hydrated. Thanks to Charmer for joining us on the booth all day, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.